Well, I thought I would surprise you all by being early. Got ya! I can be on time too, I just don't wanna be on time. Well, I kinda chinched you guys earlier, and I was in a pissy mood because it was really hot in my office earlier. It's still really hot in my office, but guess what I have now? Beer. And beer will solve this problem because I now, of course, based on my birthday surprise, have a mini fridge in my office that my husband expertly brought me for my birthday. And then he was like, "You're gonna hate your gift. You're gonna hate your gift. You're gonna hate your gift." And he whined about it so much that I made him give it to me the day before my birthday because I was like, "I'm sick of hearing about how much I'm gonna hate my gift. Do you just want to give it to me?" And he's like, "Yes." And then it turned out to be the greatest gift ever because I now have a mini fridge for beer in my office, which means that I have some extra leftover beer from happy hour and socialism Saturday that I never drank because guess what used to happen? I wouldn't drink all my beer on happy hour. And then my husband would decide that what's my beer is his beer because it's in the community fridge downstairs, and he would drink my beer. And most of the time, that's fine. But every once in a while, it created a problem because I bought a beer that I really wanted to drink, and I asked him not to drink it, and he did anyway. And then he was like, "I'm going to go replenish the beer at the store." And I'm like, "It's the principal, mother effer. It's my beer." and so, and so to solve for this problem, my husband bought me a beer fridge for my birthday. So now he is not tempted with my beer because it's in my office. So I have some extra beer and I have some knitting. And yes, I basically have an autonomous zone for the mini fridge with the beer in it in my office. No one is allowed in it but me. This is my this is my reclaimed property. Well, right now, Eric, that's a great question. I'm drinking a beer called Sabbath. And I bought it because I like the label of it because it was so simple and badass. And this is a raspberry lemonade sour ale. And I have some stouts and I have some other stuff. But to get down to a more important order of business. So, many, many moons ago, 10 months ago, to be fair, well, in fact, 10 months ago, there's what I wanted to say. I started covering James O'Keefe's departure from Project Veritas. Now, when it first happened, I was on James O'Keefe's side because the way it was presented out to the public kind of made it seem as though James was fired from Project Veritas and that the board had really effed him over, which happens all the time in nonprofits. And so I had no problem believing that it was actually the board's fault and James was innocent. Then more and more information started coming out, just piecemeal. And James went on this conservative media smear campaign and he did that dramatic exit interview from The Office that we all saw. And I kind of started, like, my organizational psychologist brain started pinging. And I was like, this isn't right. This isn't right. I've seen this before. Where have I seen this before? And I basically figured out that James is a narcissist. I really do believe that. I think that James O'Keefe has narcissistic personality disorder. I figured out that Pfizer had nothing to do with bringing down Project Veritas. I figured out the real timeline. And the biggest thing that came out that was really helpful for me in figuring this out or in confirming it was like the lawsuit information, in which there was a clear timeline in the lawsuit that Project Veritas filed against James O'Keefe, where I was like, oh, okay, I see what happened now. So I documented the timeline of James leaving Project Veritas, which no one else on the internet got correct. Viva Frey tried to own me and act like he was a big man that had this all figured out when Viva Frey had absolutely no fucking idea what was going on. I did all this stuff about it where I was talking about the lawsuit and I was talking about this and I was talking about that. And it turns out that apparently I was like the only person on the internet to get it right. Like in almost every part of my analysis, and I did it all with publicly available information. And the reason that I know that is because I started having dozens of Project Veritas employees reaching out to me. Now, I had been in touch with Project Veritas here and there before that. I was talking with one of their reporters about like socialist stuff. I had, I was working with them to try to get coverage on some of the school stuff that I was working on. And so I was kind of hopeful before all this stuff happened with James that I was actually going to be able to partner with Project Veritas on some things because I really liked the people I was talking to. Everyone was nice, everyone was kind. Like it was like one of those things. It was like the rare gem within the conservative movement where things actually seemed to be functioning normally. And then all this shit happened with James and it all went to hell. But when I started doing this coverage, I started getting all this outreach and all these messages from all these different Project Veritas people, all wanting to talk to me on the phone. And every single one of them was like, you got it right. And let me tell you all this other stuff that you don't know. And so I had dozens of conversations with these people. And by the way, one of the reasons that I was so adamant about covering this is because every single person I talked to from Project Veritas was like, they were just fucking normal. They were normal people that had been completely fucked over by James O'Keefe. They just wanted their story out there. They couldn't talk about it because James was on this smear campaign. There was this lawsuit. There was all this blowback coming on them that was completely undeserved. The people who were in the letter that we're going to be listening to tonight at the board meeting, they were having like all this social media blowback. These are just normal everyday people. Some of these people covered some of the biggest stories that you guys have ever heard of from Project Veritas. Like some of the people I talked to were the legitimate undercover like reporters that were covering some of the biggest stories. You have never heard of these people's names, except when they came out in that letter and called James on his bullshit. And then everyone in the conservative Twitter sphere started attacking them. And no one knew and no one understood that these people were the ones that were out there doing the work to actually expose every major story from Project Veritas. And James had nothing to do with a lot of that reporting. And in fact, sometimes James was getting in the way of doing that reporting. So I heard all these stories. And based on that, I produced a 2-part series on my Substack called The True Story of the Implosion of Project Veritas. Bro, I have a PhD in psychology. What are your credentials? And this is you can go on the Substack and read this. This is a long ass story that basically documented how James fucked over Project Veritas, how he went on a conservative media smear campaign, what happened, all that stuff. That was part 1 of the story. It got even worse actually after that, because after James left, they hired this other person as a CEO, Hannah Giles. Hannah finished off Project Veritas through her gross mismanagement as CEO. And it was really one of those things where like, it's such a shame because James and Hannah were basically the two people. Well, it was actually Hannah that originally did the Acorn story and she brought in James. James likes to lie about that and say it was originally him. It was not originally him. It was originally Hannah. Anyway, Hannah had no business being the CEO of this company. She completely fucked them over with fundraising. She completely fucked them over on a lot of decisions she made. And she was making these bad decisions while at the same time conservative media had just completely turned against everyone at Project Veritas because of the smear campaign that James O'Keefe went on. Every single conservative show that you guys saw running James O'Keefe saying something about bought and paid for by Pfizer, that was all bullshit. None of it was real, but it doesn't matter because conservative audiences have a massive issue with hero worship in that conservative audiences and listen, if you're a conservative and you're the exception to this rule, that's fine. I'm not talking about you individually. I'm saying as a broad group, conservative audiences care about having a hero to worship more than they care about the truth. And we've seen this over and over and over and over and over again. Anytime an influencer is overtly doing something wrong, is overtly doing something shady, gets exposed for something, conservative audiences will do every single thing they can to lie to themselves, to believe that this is just all a conspiracy theory and the world is working against us and da 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 in order to protect the influencer that is snowing them right in front of their face. This is why there are so many grifters on the conservative right because their audiences protect them and they drive away everyone that's actually trying to do something productive, which is why they lose all the time. James O'Keefe is an example of this. James O'Keefe, like the people working at Project Veritas were kind of like I don't like youthfully naive. Ideally not like they had an idyllic view of the world. They thought we just have to get the lawsuit out there and we just have to get the facts out there. Everyone say hi to Aaron. Aaron is one of my Project Veritas friends. No longer there, obviously, because Project Veritas doesn't exist anymore. But he is one of my friends. But I think a lot of people at Project Veritas, especially the journalists, they had this kind of like idealized sense that the truth matters and we just need to get our story out there and we just need to get the receipts out there and it's going to be okay. Well, that's not the way it works in the conservative influencer space. That's not the way it works in the conservative content space because James O'Keefe was their hero and they didn't want to acknowledge any of the other undercover journalists who were actually putting their asses on the line to do something that they would never get credit for by name. Like really think about that. The undercover journalists sometimes like people in conservative media like to paint this as the undercover journalists at Project Veritas just put up a Tinder profile and then basically they work for a weekend on a story and they get the date with the person that they're targeting on Tinder and then they go on the date and then they get the whole story. That's not how it works. I had long conversations with some of these reporters and there was one story I heard about specifically where like they were working on it. God, how long was I'm not gonna say the name, but like I want to say it was like basically had to be away from home for over a month to get a single story. Like there was massive investment in getting some of these stories. There was a lot of human resources that went into it. There was a lot of time that went into it. And it was like it was so underestimated by all the people in conservative media who genuinely believe that the undercover journalists at Project Veritas were literally just logging onto Tinder on their phone and they had their source by the next day and then they went on a date with them over the weekend and that's all they really had to do. And anyone can be an undercover journalist at Project Veritas. It's just really not that hard. All you need is a Tinder profile. They said this over and over and over and over and over again to their huge audiences. Do you guys want to know why I harp on conservative influencers' lack of responsibility to their audiences so much? Because they lie to them all the time. Conservative influencers lie to their audiences all the time. And Project Veritas and what happened at Project Veritas is one of the just, I mean, if there was one thing that really just made it very clear to me that the conservative right is not worth helping at all, and that I never wanted to be associated with any of these horrible people again, it was this. Because I saw how many people lied about them, how many influencers lied about them, how many shows lied about them. I mean, it's basically every big name that you know of overtly shilled this story that had no basis in reality at all. They did no journalism. They did no fact checking. They basically talked to James O'Keefe and he said, "Pinky swear, trust me, bro. They're bought and paid for by Pfizer." The reason that Project Veritas essentially no longer exists is because of conservative media. Conservative media destroyed Project Veritas, put out of work all of the undercover reporters who were doing really good journalism, important journalism that weren't involved in any of this bullshit. And they did it all to protect James O'Keefe, who is a raging narcissist, who you guys are going to see so much information come out about James O'Keefe. We're going to see what happens. We're going to see if James gets his comeuppance. But I have never been so disgusted by seeing what conservative media and what conservative influencers did to people at Project Veritas. And I'm going to say this too. I'm an organizational psychologist by training. I did a lot of corporate training. I did a lot of team building stuff. Like, I was working in the corporate world for years and years and years and years and years before I ever was on the internet. I know a thing or two about like workplace environments, and I know a thing or two about teams. And one of the things that was so striking to me was the team at Project Veritas. They saw each other as a family. They really did. It wasn't just talk. They had each other's backs. They were cohesive, and it was real. And I was watching at the tail end of it, and I was talking to a lot of them at the tail end of it. And I was basically talking to a whole bunch of people at Project Veritas from the time that they filed the lawsuit up until the time that they fired all the employees. I watched it all fall apart, and I was talking to them the whole time, and I saw the reaction to it, and I saw not everything because I'm not in their groups or anything, but I saw, I think, more than most people about how they were talking to each other and how they were interacting with each other. And it was just one of those things where it's like there was a good, solid, cohesive team that was completely dedicated to doing the work. They were completely dedicated to it. This is who they were. This is their mission. This is their identity. And conservative media destroyed it. They destroyed it by lying to their audience about what happened. Well, maybe it didn't come on the timeline that everyone would have liked, but the receipts are finally coming out. And they were always going to. Are you really going to tell me that James O'Keefe is going to fuck over a group of undercover reporters and investigators, and they aren't going to provide the receipts at some point when they're able to? They're putting the receipts out there now. It was only a matter of time. Now, there was some stuff that was out a while ago, but now they're putting even more out. And so this guy named Kalen used to work for them. Kalen was a creative producer for Project Veritas under James O'Keefe. And he recently went on this podcast called Dangerous Rhetoric, in which they had like a 3.5-hour conversation about what happened at Project Veritas. Now, we're not going to listen to that today because there's something I want to listen to that I've wanted to listen to for a really long ass time. And it might be a little bit boring for some people. It might be a little bit wonky for some people, but I'm an industrial organizational psychologist. This is what I am interested in. I'm sorry if people think it's boring and wonky, but check this out. So I posted a link to this Google Drive in the YouTube chat, and I'll post it in the Rumble chat as well. But if you click on this link right here, Project Veritas receipts, that takes you to this Google Drive. And everyone here is welcome to go and look at the receipts for yourself. I encourage everyone to watch the interview with Kalen. Maybe we'll watch that another time. But there's a whole bunch of stuff in this Google Drive folder. One of the things in the Google Drive is the February 6, 2023 board meeting with James O'Keefe. And you'll see we have this PDF of timestamps, and there's an audio recording of it. And I basically spent the last couple hours, like, I downloaded the audio recording, I upped the volume on it because it's a little hard to hear, but I made the volume louder so that I can make sure everyone on the stream would hear it. And we're going to be able to listen. Do you guys remember when that letter came out from all the employees basically saying, like, here are all the things that James has done? And they talked about a board meeting in which the employees had confronted and kind of like confronted James with his own actions. This is the recording of that board meeting. So I have the recording. It's like 5+ hours long. I don't know that we're going to listen to the whole thing, but luckily we have this handy dandy timestamp document to let us know what parts to listen to. So we're going to start around minute 26 or so, and they're going to start the board meeting with James. And they're going to talk about, like, I guess, like just some context for it. And they're going to talk about some of the things that James did. And they're going to take testimony from employees. And then you guys are going to get to hear, when we get to later in the meeting, how it actually went down, because James O'Keefe went around saying he was fired from Project Veritas and the board was bought and paid for by Pfizer, and this was all a setup just to get him out, to steal his company from him. Well, this is the recording of the board meeting. And so we're going to be able to hear what happened. So that's what we're going to listen to tonight. And I have some beer, and I have some knitting, and everyone should just settle in with a snack or something. And we're going to find out what actually happened at Project Veritas. And again, the if you guys want to look through the receipts, you can do so in the Google Drive that I pinned to the top of the chat on YouTube. It's also in the chat on Rumble. And we're just going to see where this goes. And we're just going to have to deal with the sound of this, guys. I know it's not perfect. We're going to get started up around minute 26. But we're just going to listen, and we're going to see what happens.
The minutes, they'll be in the minutes. For us.
I haven't had a chance to read this letter. I just received it, so I don't know what's in it before I put it.
Hey, bro, I know you're on Twitter, but you tell me what to do on my stream, and that's going to be a really quick way for you to get blocked. If you want to listen to the recording on your own, Margot, you can go and access the link on your own and listen to it on your own, bitch. And you don't have to listen to me. It's public information. Be a big girl, Margot. Go click on the link. I know it's hard, Margot. I know it's very hard, but you will find the link on my Twitter. I tweeted it out, Margot. You don't need to be here right now. If you're going to be an evil cunt, get the fuck out.
Prove it. So I would defer to you, John.
You can abstain.
True.
Well, I would, if I were you, I'd abstain because you don't have information, and that's a fair. And to be fair to you, I think that's what you should do.
Then I will abstain from voting on that motion. Thank you.
So the motion passes to read the letter without going through all pages of the letter.
And then you were going to read the preamble only at this time. Is that correct?
I was going to just read the opening paragraphs and a view of just to give a representative.
Okay,
go.
Go.
February 6, 2023, to Project Veritas Board of Directors, Project Veritas Action Board of Directors, and Executive Management. Note, the opinions, data shared, and anecdotes were compiled by 1/3 of the TV staff, representing every department. Not all signed this letter, but all had compelling reasons to contribute. Signatories have not been the subject of abuse, nor witnessed any abuse, but found the corroborated behavior troubling and were willing to sign. The undersigned are troubled and frustrated with James' management style and business acumen. These behaviors and actions are antithetical to our core values and came to a head this week. Most recently, the treatment of Barry Hinckley and Tom O'Hara. These two highly respected individuals did what they felt was right for the best.
So when they're talking about the treatment of Barry and Tom, what happened is essentially James grossly mismanaged the finances of Project. James spent way more money than he should have. let me just be brass tacks. James spent way more of Project Veritas's money than he should have. He spent it on things that were not business expenses, like trips to see his girlfriend and things, and a helicopter trip to fix his boat or something. I talked about all this stuff before, but this is not a big deal. James went around conservative media and tried to make it seem like everyone was just upset because James rented black cars and it was all about these black cars and it was just about the black cars and why didn't they want him to have black cars? And he said black cars like over and over and over and over and over and over and over again because James knows how to brainwash people to get them to believe what he wants them to believe because he's a fucking narcissist. But it was never about the black cars. James misspent like $1 million of donor money. And basically they had this new CFO, and the CFO was like, James, you need to pay us back because you're putting our nonprofit status in jeopardy. Because that's the reality here. And you'll see in the receipts document, like a letter was sent to the employees saying exactly this. James O'Keefe put Project Veritas's nonprofit status in jeopardy with the IRS because of his spending on things that he shouldn't have been spending money on, and he needed to reimburse the company. Well, when he was asked to do this by Tom and Barry, who were the CFO, and I believe Barry was the COO. I'm having to go back into the archives now. But these are two C-suite individuals. James unilaterally fired both of them because he was asked to repay the money to Project Veritas. And James isn't allowed to do that. He was not allowed to unilaterally fire C-suite employees, and there are reasons for that. He had to get board approval to do it. He didn't do that. He lied about it. And so what they're talking about there is James unilaterally firing people that he was not allowed to fire.
Veteran of the organization and got berated in public on Tuesday and effectively terminated by Thursday. There is a screenshot of a text from Barry King to the development team. Team, last night I stood up to a bully and was fired. Management by shaming and bullying is never acceptable and it doesn't belong in the workplace. I won't tolerate it personally or on behalf of my coworkers' direct reports. I am proud to say I stand by my actions. It was an honor to work with you. As they say, be brave, do something. The letter follows. These actions led to immediate communication between concerned PV members. Over the past 2 days, we collected additional examples of behavior which crossed the line. The following bulleted items came from individuals and are edited as little as possible to keep the spirit of everyone's individual thoughts. The first data point is a unattributed quote. James has become a power-drunk tyrant, and he's exactly who he pontificates on who we should be exposing. There are 7 pages of anecdotes, very representatively. Airing grievances leading to termination is what has prevented me from speaking up in the past. Times I was accused of violating my NDA, sabotage, and have my behavior labeled.
Yeah, people are noting that James O'Keefe is now going on a smear campaign against Kyle Seraphin and accusing him of being a Fed. Guys, this is what narcissists do. This is what narcissists do when people come at them. They go on smear campaigns to try to discredit them. This has been done to me by narcissists. This has been done to the Project Veritas team by narcissists. Now James didn't do this to me because I think I'm too small potatoes for James to even worry about, which is fine with me. I've had a different narcissist do this to me though. And so now James is going on a smear campaign against Kyle Seraphin, and he's also trying to rope Laura Loomer into doing the smear campaign as well, because that's basically how this rolls. Laura Loomer is like a lieutenant of James's in his narcissistic like personality thing, and so now they're going after him.
Traitorous. Lack of transparency when mistakes are made from the top down. Example, former producer never suing us. It was told to our entire company as if it was absolutely true. Patrick Davis was a bad hire. We all know that. But when I tried early on to prevent him from assuming so much power and authority, knowing he couldn't handle it, I received a classic. If you don't agree, there's the door. I'm going to try and read short ones. It's sad, embarrassing, and increasingly becoming James' standard for how he treats supporters. Honestly, it's wild wild and incredibly irrational behavior for someone publicly and internally claims to be the only one raising money. At the Democracy Partners trial in public, I was yelled at in front of jurors because he was hungry and he took the 8-month pregnant woman's sandwich. Barry, Dan, Tom, and Eric were the subject of bullying on the leadership meeting with 10 people present. No productive outcome resulted that needed a forum of everyone present. Everyone is operating in fear of James Zurich. One doesn't know whether one will meet his needs and expectations since the target is constantly moving and priorities are shifting. In personal conversation with Jared last TV, it was discussed that his departure was due to personality cut between Jared and James. Jared is held in high regard to the TV staff and played an instrumental role in the organization. Several donors have expressed their concern with their money being used to produce shows like TVE. I would describe Project Veritas as current.
See, and this is the retard conservative perspective. This retard conservative perspective is a result of a massive smear campaign by conservative media. I don't know what you don't understand about the situation here. James O'Keefe is Project Veritas. You're picking a side because you're not actually a conservative. No shit, bro. I've only been saying every day of my life since February of 2020 that I'm not a conservative. I would never lower myself to associate with people like you. You are so far beneath me. I can barely even hear you from up here, bro. But you know what? James O'Keefe isn't a conservative either, which you're going to find out if you ever remove your head from your ass long enough to actually look at the evidence that's being presented to you. Now, I understand every angle that you're probably not smart enough to do that. You're your average kind of like sub 75 IQ retard that just comes in and shitposts on the internet because it's the only thing that you can do to compensate a tiny, 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 teeny, tiny little penis. You give yourself away, bro. I'm telling you that for your own good. Like, every time you guys do stuff like this, we all know. Every woman knows. We know. But you're welcome to stay and listen. But if you do this again, I'm going to ban you from my chat and you can GTFO. And I don't really care because my channel doesn't cater to low IQ conservative retards.
Environment with this saying, the beatings will continue until morale improves. In recent donor meetings with James, his behavior has been arrogant and dismissive of the donor if they do not just pick up or give us 5 or 6 figure donations. It's happened in the past 2 weeks in a meeting with the donor in Miami. James is quickly coming across as though desperate for funds and everyone's duty to. Donors are hesitating about the size and whether gifts should be sent to Project Veritas. At a donor event in Greenwich in September, James was 1 hour and 15 minutes late. We had a room with 100 people waiting for him to speak. People commented afterwards that he could have at least apologized for being so late. This is a good example of James not really realizing that everyone's time is important and should be respected. James' constant habit of publicly demeaning people's roles and responsibilities. Except this quote, see, I'm the example, everyone is a junior editor. To be weary of James' mood, really awful. Okay.
You're breaking up a bit, man.
Hey,
Matt, we're having trouble hearing you.
Sorry.
Oh, is that Matt Tiermont?
I'm going to skip ahead. I'm not going to read the rest of these anecdotes. There's like 30 or so.
So Matt Tiermont got the brunt of this on social media, and everyone's like, Matt Tiermont is the great orchestrator of like the outster, but that's not true, guys. That's not true. And I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to say that what I saw from my perspective, which is limited into what happened, but I still had more access than I think most people did. What I saw was Matt Tiermont trying to get as many people jobs as he could after Project Veritas went under. What I saw is Matt Tiermont absolutely having the back of the employees at Project Veritas and sticking up for them when other people wouldn't. That's what I saw. Now, I don't agree with Matt Tierman on everything, and God knows he and I have some pretty big, disagreements over Israel, but Matt Tierman's never been anything but respectful to me. Matt Tierman, even though he and I have some pretty big disagreements over Israel, guess what? He has never shit on me half of the extent, not even the tiniest little bit, over those disagreements. And it's just like, he's always been a nice guy. He's always been very cordial to me. I've seen him be nothing but cordial to other people. So I have a hard time like watching the amount of backlash that guy got over this whole thing, when it seems like Matt Tierman was one of the few people that was trying to stand up and do the right thing.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. We are writing this out because we value the organization that James has built and what we've become. No one else is doing the work of TV, and we love it. What we do for our audience, we do incredibly well. However, we can't become even greater until we unleash the full potential of the organization and its people. The only product we have is the material that comes from the people in this organization. If we don't make these changes, we will fail to retain the best people. We have the moral courage to say what needs to be said, to continue down the path we were on, and you will have an army of yes when dare pen this letter. We are resilient. Failure is not an option. Be brave, do something. This was signed by people from production, journalists, development, IT, and facilities. There's screenshots of messages, and this is all in the document, and a rehash of our core values and our ethical values. And this is 11 pages, and if it's deemed prudent, I will put this up for vote. I will submit this to the observers that we have invited in and allowed to observe on listen only this call. I will send this out so they have more context. I will motion to vote on that.
I will insist
Sorry,
on.
motion.
Sorry.
I'm motioning to share this letter with the observers that we've invited in to observe this proceeding.
Matt, are you suggesting that
Sorry, that was.
the employees that contributed to this letter be observers for the rest of this meeting?
No, just the observers that we have that we've invited in who are currently with us. That is Paul Martino, Eric O'Keefe, if Jeff Lichtman's on this call, if he's invited in as observer as well. I don't know if he's on the call. I don't want to send this out unilaterally. It's not my role to make that decision.
I think this is,
Anyone?
If we're in the discussion phase, I don't know if it's appropriate for this letter to be leaked out, especially if it has the names of employees on it.
I have to agree.
Those employees' names have not been read, and I would prefer to keep it that way. I would amend the motion to enter the letter in its entirety as an exhibit to the minutes and leave it at that.
the minutes of private property of Project Veritas. We do not want this, to get out. I don't think.
I mean, my view is that anybody who we've invited into this call is trusted to maintain the duty of care we've bestowed upon them, that they will not leave this out. This is for context, so they understand the rest of the organization.
I have no assurity of that.
No, they don't mind.
No, Bill, I think that's a foolish, wish. Foolish hope. I'm not saying you're foolish. I'm just saying that it would be highly imprudent and be technical. It could be a technical violation of our NDA and our duty of care and trust to employees and to the interest of the organization.
Okay, then in lieu of that, we will attach it to the minutes for board and officers and internal counsel only.
I have a question. I have the impression that we allowed the auditors to be in for at least that summary, that quick reading of some excerpts. Was that not the case? Were the auditors not on, we're not on for that? That's the purpose of having.
The observers are on listen only, and they are listening to everything we say, as we have extended this courtesy to them in good faith.
Okay, so they did hear that. Well, I wanted to be privy to the substantive issues, and that's,
I don't want to,
okay.
you know, I don't want collateral, having carried.
Yeah. But the dog, it would be highly inappropriate.
Yeah, I'd like to recommend we not move past what we've already done with the hour and 50 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
oh, man.
In lieu of that, I would like to have the employees who have agreed to speak to us in full knowledge that this is in front of the board, observers that we've invited in, and that this is recorded. They have extended their willingness to make us aware of these data points that they believe we should know, I believe we should know, and I believe that's what happened.
Okay, so I just want to like make sure people understand what's going on here. So what happened is that we all saw the public letter that got leaked, probably by James, is my opinion, that basically had that list of grievances, right? They've now brought the employees who were involved in writing that letter into a meeting with the board where the employees are going to give testimony in their own words about what happened. And this is the part that we haven't heard before. Well, this isn't HR, bro. This is a board meeting. This is not HR.
Call.
Yeah, let's move on to that.
Let's move quickly.
Okay, I would have Dan Strack, our ranking officer, COO,
Okay,
talk for a few minutes about his impression of the management style and the leadership.
May I ask if do I have a chance to?
Hang on. Is there a list of all the things he spent money on? Yes. They did an audit, and that audit has been publicly released. And so people can actually go, and I don't have the link offhand, but I know I can get access to the link if I need it. But they did actually publicly, well, the ex-employees from Project Veritas publicly released the audit because the CEO that replaced James didn't want to do it. So the employees basically took it into their own hands and released it themselves. But there is actually an audit document. It backs up every single thing that I've said. And I'm sure we can find a link to it if we want to. No, moron. No, let's talk. More listening. That's not what happened here. Wrong. This is why conservatives always lose. They have no idea what's going on, and yet they think they know everything because they don't fucking listen.
Respond to this.
absolutely. Yes, but I think absolutely, you should have every right to do that. But I think that because of the time issues that with your assent, respectful assent, James, I think it's important to listen to them first and then give you a chance to thoroughly respond to everything, take notes, and because we're in an extreme time crunch because of Joe's and George's, or Joe's and Steve's issues that I didn't foresee. Otherwise, I think we'll never get there in the time we have.
I would like to read my.
Let's bring him in.
Go.
Let's bring Dan in.
Fine.
It's we're still in 6A of the agenda, so.
No more, yeah.
Bot just put the audit in that.
Dan present us his views.
The link that Bot just put in the chat, that is the correct audit, Bot. Well done.
As being sort of the COO about management and culture.
Go.
Second,
So, I'll approve.
if it needs a motion, then, yeah.
Well, can we just do a blanket approval that we're gonna have here? I don't want to have a separate vote on every person that comes in. That's insane.
Yeah,
So the sequence that happens, I move that we just, without further delay, have whoever is on base, talk, okay? Thanks.
Let's do employees and see what I think I'm adamant about that.
Oh, sorry, just for the
Let's
accuracy.
bring them in then.
Sorry, just
Let's
for the
follow the
accuracy.
agenda and bring them in.
Guys, just for the accuracy of the minutes, I need to get a vote count on that proposal.
Approve, or, I'll move for that, but anybody want to second it?
I second it.
I mean, I think the motion is moved because it's incorporated in the agenda, but I will permit.
Okay. Joe's right. Okay, go.
Steve, George. I knew you. Approved.
Approved.
There.
Okay, belt suspenders.
Thank you.
Dan Spratt, are you on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
I did.
Yes.
Yes. I joined Project Veritas about 10 months ago. And over the last 10 months, we've had a lot of incredibly positive things, both at an organizational level and also individual level with James and I's interaction. There have been a number of things that we've also debated. Some of them are around finances and expenditures and how to value what is a worthwhile expenditure. From a management perspective, the leading by intimidation seems to have been a theme long before I joined, and something that has pervaded over the last 10 months. And despite us having incredibly positive stories, viewership, and overall attention, I think we've had these actions have actually, as far as people management goes, have gotten worse in my eyes. Personally, I believe most of this has to do with too many responsibilities, too much accountability, and not focusing on core competencies across journalism and the creative side. All great organizations come to a point where the founder cannot wear all the hats because they're no longer a startup. And I believe that that's where we are right now. I think most of all of this negative behavior stems from the inability to manage all of these different things and wear all of these different hats. I'm not sure if I should go into specific examples around things or what you guys really need me to focus on, but that's my general overview.
I was just alerted because I think it's relevant to the conversation. I was just alerted by staff that the organization's social media accounts have just had all their passwords changed, and all of the staff is locked out of the organizational social media accounts in the last 2 minutes.
Who did that? Who has the power to do that?
I think Eric, right? Eric Spracklin?
Eric Spracklin, yeah.
Eric is on PTO.
Was he directed?
Eric is on PTO right now.
Was he directed to do that?
Not by me.
No.
Eric
Not by James, you just said either.
Social media accounts.
Okay, well, maybe that's something that's not material, because it can be corrected until, after this. Maybe it's just as well that we're not communicating to anybody outside of the organization at this time. Until after a meeting, okay? I hope
Let's move on with the agenda.
everybody knows their NDAs. Yeah, all of that.
Dan, if you want to add anything incremental, I can do so. Whether it's hiring, firing, flow of process, anything you perceive, yeah.
We're fine.
Okay.
Fine.
Am I still talking?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I just had to run and get a power cord. Any other, so,
Do you want to hit some bullet points, Dan, operational issues, or operationalize some of your comments?
yeah,
It's in
so I
the
think,
pinned tweet,
on,
Jason.
on some levels, it might be worth, worth going through some of the things that led.
Don't do it turns out we're extremely time constrained, so you can skip the preamble.
Okay, all right. So I
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I think obviously the most impactful thing that happened recently were the firings with no seemingly, seemingly wildly irresponsible firing, particularly of Tom, for seemingly no good reason from my perspective. So that very concerning.
This is Dan. This was the former executive director of the company that's talking right now.
And I think there have been a number of I often say negative energy is very expensive, and just absolutely raising voices and yelling at people, leadership by intimidation. When I got here, Patrick Davis was completely torn down in front of his entire staff. That was one example. Patrick Davis wasn't the right person for the role. However, that doesn't mean that he deserves that type of treatment, nor does anyone. The same thing.
Do you have any suggestions on how to change that?
Stop yelling at staff.
Well, I think two things. I think number one, I think stress is a major factor in this. It's personal. But I think the second is to focus on highest and best use, things that allow James to shine as opposed to get frustrated. And I think that is, separating a lot of, real roles and responsibilities and defining that. For example, the org chart, if you look at our org chart now, pretty much everyone in the organization reports to me. There's dotted lines into James, but there's a helicopter leadership management style that, comes and born out of the startup mentality of having to do everything from day one. But at some point we have to mature past that, and separate some of those roles and responsibilities so that helicopter leadership does not continue.
Well, if I'm hearing you, that would also, I even talked to James last night on this, but that relieves some of his stress, because I completely agree that he's a genius. Let him be a genius at what he's a genius at. And
hang on. Is it possible? Well, no, James is an asshole, but James is also a narcissist. I'm 100% positive of this. And again, I'm not just saying that willy-nilly. I'm saying that based on the dozens of conversations I've had with Project Veritas employees. Also, just for people who don't know this, I literally did my PhD about workplace bullying. I had to study narcissism in the workplace for a really long ass time. I'm not one to throw around the title of narcissist flippantly. If I'm saying someone is a narcissist, I'm not doing it as a joke or to put them down. I'm doing it because I legitimately believe they're a narcissist. Let's see. Rottweiler says, did the board of directors state their pronouns at the start? No. Remember, that was according to the conservatives. He was sabotaged by a millennial SJW employee. Yeah, that's utter garbage. And I talked several times to the guy who had his pronouns in his bio on his LinkedIn, and that apparently was evidence that Project Veritas had gone woke. He wasn't woke at all. He was a really nice guy that was friends with James because they were James was into yachting and his family owned a yacht company. And it's he wasn't woke at all. It was just he probably just filled out a field on LinkedIn and didn't think of it. Yeah, what is with the name James? That's a good question, Sin.
And he's really, we'll see later, but we'll just.
And for the record, I've never liked the name James. Every James I know has been weird. I went to school with this really weird kid named James, and I think it just always stuck with me the wrong way.
Whether personnel and management's in its wheelhouse, I would assert that it's not. And I've heard that verbatim from other people too that know more about it.
And what roles should be separated?
I think the business from the journalism and creativity. And when I say separated, We all have read a number of books here. It's the manager, the employee, the entrepreneur's operating system. All of these management books always refer to a visionary, who is one individual, and an implementer or executor, which is another individual. So I would say that the effective of whether it's a CEO or executive director, the effective business leader versus the creative leader, those are two different roles. Often organizations start with them being the same person, but they very, very infrequently end that way.
Well, this is a question. There's a world in which James would continue to be a visionary leader.
Hang on. This is actually a good question. So I'm glad you're asking it. I didn't formally announce this in a post. I did announce it on a stream today. We're not doing nothing remotely controversial tonight because Joshua had an appointment. He's fine. It's just he had an appointment. So we're not doing it tonight. We'll be back next week. I'm sorry.
Strategic leader, all the things that are brilliant and genius at that have created this place as a historical person, as an icon of American culture and politics. Is there a way, we'll decide later, but I'm just asking for your
yes,
whether that's all.
Yes, I believe in that 100%. And when I talk about separating roles and responsibilities, it's not like I'm suggesting that James has no say in these other activities or defining the vision. I'm not suggesting that at all. It's just unilateral authority. And it's my way or the highway type of management style needs to change.
May I have a chance
Let me
to?
ask this, on mute, I'm sorry. How many reporting lines are there within PV? How many separate, maybe they are general ledger accounting sections, but how many different reporting sections are there within the PV structure?
So we have business development
Point.
with
IT.
Well, this meeting happened over a year ago, Mark, and it just got released. So yeah, it was confidential for a long ass time. And had James behaved like a normal human being and been responsible, it never would have been released. That's a good point.
we have business development, we have communications and media relations, which is really one entity. We have legal, we have IT, we have the journalists, and then we have the producers and editors, and then we have accounting. And HR, which is, yes.
So about 6 or 7.
There's finance and accounting in there, some.
Yeah,
They're the same, they're the same.
So about 6 or 7 in total.
I wanted to clarify my question.
This was recorded on February 6, 2023, and it is very different than what you were told by James O'Keefe because James O'Keefe lied. And if you want to take a look at this and look at everything for yourself, there is a link pinned to the top of the chat in YouTube that has all sorts of documents in it that will show you that James O'Keefe lied. That's why this sounds different.
Would part of that role be being, being the strategic leader for journalism as he's de facto been very effectively in the past?
Yes. I mean, besides the on-air talent and the editorial and creative oversight, that is part and parcel of what James is absolutely.
He's a world-class professional at that. He's a star.
That's right.
You also mentioned legal. Isn't he mostly involved as a prime witness in any of the ongoing suits, whatever they may be?
Yes.
Okay, so he's intimately involved in legal. He has no choice.
But yeah, correct.
The issue, I guess, there really, I think, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the which ones we should pursue or shouldn't pursue. It's not necessarily that James, obviously being the spokesperson for the company, he's going to be named in just anything that PV does.
it's more about the strategy of legal, I think, is what Dan is kind of getting at, and not,
Right.
and having that diversification as opposed to, up to this point, it was, we don't surrender, we fight everything. And sometimes that's just.
If I'm not mistaken, there's probably no very few, if any, CEOs of organizations of this size, and this is something that James should be congratulated upon for us getting to this stage.
Yes, they were highly successful. They were also highly successful after James left. The reason that Project Veritas was successful was not because of James. It was because they had a dedicated staff that did everything they could to make Project Veritas be successful. James was not the one doing undercover journalism. James was not the one running undercover journalism. James sometimes would actually fuck up the projects related to the journalism. James's only role was fundraising. That was it. So the reason that Project Veritas continued to be very successful at journalism after James left is the core staff didn't change. And they kept turning out story after story after story. They even turned out stories on Pfizer, but conservative media refused to pay attention to them because if James O'Keefe wasn't involved, then they didn't care about the journalism anymore. It was conservative media that sunk Project Veritas because they bought into everything James O'Keefe said without doing a basic fact check. That's reality.
That would have a micromanagement of people, or probably would want to delegate things in the management realm, the operations realm, to another principal within the company. Remaining in a strategic role, which is what a lot of chairmen or executive chairmen or CEOs do. But you need to, whatever the term of art, it can't be ambiguous as to the duties. It has to be clear. It has to be scope and all that.
I'd like to respond to the statements by Dan.
Stefan, just let in the number ending in 5140. It's Jeff Litzman, who's been an invited observer.
Yes, opinion C. Okay.
I know.
Like the
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I think James wanted,
Okay, go ahead.
James wanted a chance to respond.
I'd like the opportunity to respond, and I thank everyone for their candor. May I say a few words?
You're the president, James. You're still the president.
I would offer this response, a letter that I've written to the staff regarding kind of a sincere, heartfelt apology for some of the things that have happened here in meetings. And I would like to read it to you, and then we can discuss it and get your thoughts.
And we just, please. Particularly the first part is really relevant to our present discussion. The other part is sort of past, so it's about ordering of the minutes and things like
Sure.
that. And that's getting into operational, decisions that we're going to be discussing later.
The letter reads, "Dear team, on Tuesday of this week, some of you had the unfortunate experience of seeing me get into a heated disagreement over the direction and nature of our fundraising approaches. I confronted an issue in front of a group that should have been handled privately, and I was wrong to behave this way. It affected many people at headquarters who overheard it. I also have not been patient with some of you and have behaved poorly. As you all are the lifeblood of Project Veritas, I want you to know I'm sorry and ashamed of my actions. And I have not sent this out yet. With the blessing of the board, I propose this be one of the solutions that I discuss for the sake of Project Veritas. Many of you have been with me for years, know that this is not the first time I've gotten emotional and impulsive during times of strain. We are on a stressful journey together, and sometimes the pressure gets the best of me. It does not matter the circumstances. I should never behave that way in front of my colleagues or treat people working hard for Veritas in an unkind manner, and I'm truly sorry. I failed to lead by example in these cases. I hurt people who are here because they believe in our mission. I am truly chastened by my behavior as I let you all down, let myself down in these instances. This is not what a great or even good leader does. I do expect the best from everyone, but it should start with me. Anything less than our best, and we do not stand a chance against the array of forces against us. We have a long way to go. If we're going to accomplish this mission, then I must hold accountable for my actions when they result in harm. So my solution is as follows. I am going to slow down and listen. From here forward, I will have an open door policy for anyone on staff to share their observations about our mission and our organization with me directly. I want to hear from the staff about ideas and communications and procedures and other things that I can do to implement and improve Project Veritas. I understand that.
Okay. We're going to listen to the rest of that letter, but I want to point out a couple of things. Number one, James essentially just sugarcoated the fact that he would fly off the handle so severely at staff on a consistent basis. And he acknowledged that this was not the first time it happened. This has happened more than once. He would fly off the handle at staff so severely that the entire office knew about it. And that's what Dan was talking about when he said like the like management by intimidation. I talked to employees at Project Veritas that were terrified of James, legitimately terrified. And so if you like, if James is saying that I have an open door policy and you can come and tell me your concerns, that's such a CYA move, because James knew full well that the people on that staff, there were some of them that would never dare talk to James about this because they had worked for James for years. They had seen James fly off the handle more than once. They were terrified of James's reaction. They weren't going to give him ammo to do that. And by the way, if James got away with this and the board let him do this, James still basically had unilateral hiring and firing privileges at this point. They hadn't been removed yet. And so it's not out of the realm of possibility that a staff member takes advantage of James's open door policy. James flies off the handle with them and fires them for following what he said he would do. And this is also James admitting the stuff that he denied when he was on Tim Pool, and Tim Pool just licked it all up, and Tim Pool was like, you are such a hero, James. You are so amazing, James. How dare these evil people at Project Veritas do this to you, James? I'm going to name a coffee after you, James. Terrorized his staff for years.
That my behavior, like the ones you saw on Tuesday, were a public disagreement, private disagreement rather, was made public, cannot happen again. And I've apologized to Tom personally.
Tom was one of the people he fired.
Please accept my apology for that behavior last week, and there have been other times in public disagreements from the bottom of my heart. I hope that I can count on your...
Well, listen, I tried to tell you guys about this 10 months ago. I have a whole bunch of streams where I was trying to tell you guys about this 10 months ago. I did stories about this on my Substack. The reality is that the reason you didn't hear about this is conservative media covered for James. Conservative media could have done exactly what I did. I figured it out based on publicly available information. Conservative media covered for James O'Keefe. So tell them.
Grace, your forgiveness, and your continued dedication to Project Veritas as we work together. We are an organization that does not exist without all of your efforts. You all know by now that I'm not always good at expressing myself, but I am chastened and have had a chance to reflect. I am very proud of this team. I believe in all of you. I want to work with you, and I want you all to be happy here in our mission. Again, I'm not always good at expressing it, but I am proud of this team. I believe in you, and I will always walk through walls for the mission of this place. I suggest that this be distributed to the staff of the board.
No, Mark, he wasn't. We are literally listening to the recording that proves this is wrong. Mark is another person that was tricked by conservative media into believing that James is the only hero in this equation and James can do no wrong. And he was and Project Veritas was bought and paid for by Pfizer. Mark, it was all bullshit. It was all bullshit from the very start. Listen. Why is everyone afraid of Carlin? Much must be the truth they fear. Well, I'm not scary to people who aren't liars. But if you are a liar, listen, man, I have a 100% track record at this. Every single organization I have called out in the last 4 years, I have been proven when the receipts came out to be absolutely correct. Every single grifting influencer that I've called out over the past 4 years, when the receipts came out, I have been proven to be correct. There has been not one failure anytime I've called someone out. That's reality. Why did they cover it up? Because James is their hero. And they need James. And James is the only one that can do undercover journalism. And no one else at Project Veritas mattered but James. James O'Keefe is a hero and everyone else sucks. Listen, man, conservatives conservatives are obsessed with hero worship. Oh, they're both going to ignore this. I promise you. Both Tim and the Quartering are going to completely ignore this and pretend it's not happening.
Board's blessing, and I'd be given the opportunity to actually have these open door policies this week and beyond, and have a chance to listen to feedback without providing any responses, but simply to listen and observe so that we could figure out the best way forward.
If I can respond to that, I think that's a good start, a great intention. We do have, per our handbook, a 24/7 open door policy. So I might revise that part before sending it out. That you certainly don't need the board's permission to take that action.
I will say that I have to be a very humbling and sincere letter. It is also a great introspection that he sees in himself that most people will never get to. And that, to me, there's mounds upon mounds of who this man is, what he has done, and why he should continue to lead.
I would like to hear from some other employees so that we have the full context of why that.
Is Dan done with his testimony?
Dan, anything else for Dan? Questions? Dan, do you want to provide other relevant input? I mean, anything.
I guess the only other thing I can, talk about briefly is just basic understanding of organizational structure and finances. Often we talk about whether we can afford something or not by, comparing it, some fixed costs to variable costs, and basic understanding of accounting is, I think, lacking there. And we're usually making
there's a link at
expense
the top
decisions
of
based
the
upon
chat.
how much of a percentage it is of payroll, which is the wrong metric on any level for any expenditure.
See, you want to know why? Do you guys want to know why this story is not going to come out? Because no one's going to. I am one of the very few people that I will sit here. Maybe I won't finish the whole thing tonight because this is really long, but I will quite literally sit here and listen to a 5.5 hour meeting. I've done it before. I'll do it again. I do stuff like this almost every single day. No one's going to do this but me. I promise you. No one else is going to play this meeting for you in its full context. And what conservatives want is a nice little 3 bullet point summary. Well, I'll give you the 3 bullet point summary. James O'Keefe lied about what happened at Project Veritas. Conservative media covered up for James. Conservative media is the thing that sunk Project Veritas. Every single thing that James O'Keefe said about what happened at Project Veritas, with Project Veritas being bought and paid for by Pfizer, was a lie. James misspent almost $1 million of Project Veritas's money and put the organization's nonprofit status in jeopardy. In response to that, the CFO demanded that James pay it back. James refused to do that, and then James blew up the company, went on a conservative media smear campaign, said bought and paid for by Pfizer over and over and over and over and over again. Everyone believed it. And then Project Veritas basically went out of business because James O'Keefe lied. That is the too long didn't read.
So that's just one example that I've always been concerned with.
Isn't that authority, shouldn't that authority kind of, or the responsibility for that?
We can agree on that, OG.
CEO or CFO, and should they be empowered in that regard or not?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes. Why? I shouldn't say it. I know the answer is yes.
Empowered presently to do that?
I think on paper, I understand it that the CFO is accountable for this, but I believe that there is very often difficult.
Dan, sorry.
Well, you can't have accountability without responsibility of empowering.
Right, John, this is Tom, I'll answer that question for you. It usually comes from the top down, so no, I don't have the ability to push back on it.
So you don't have any authority over that. You're kind of legally.
So what you just heard there is that basically the board is talking to Tom, who's the CFO, to try to figure out like what responsibility Tom has over James's spending. And what Tom is telling them is, I have no authority to push back on James's spending. Remember, James's spending was the problem. That is what put the organization's nonprofit status in jeopardy. And so you have a scenario in which the chief financial officer is not able to stop James from spending money that he shouldn't be spending and protect the organization.
Accountable maybe, but you don't have any control over how things are spent.
Correct.
Is that kind of correct or not?
Correct, yes.
Okay, well, that's a problem. I'm really glad James got to read his letter. I think it's well written and thoughtful, and I think it's really important for James to have us be heard. I do think we need to move on to the rest of the meeting.
I agree.
And thank you, James.
Stefan, I have draft inquiry in queue, the number ending in.
Okay, so should I admit the? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, they're admitted.
Thanks, Stefan.
In room, I would just say that Barry has been an employee for a few months. He came in, was hired unilaterally to be like an independent consultant on certain SBUs to help fix them. And he became a lead.
Totally agree with you.
And still talking. He was trying to. You guys hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, great.
So who you're hearing now, I believe this is Barry. Is that right? Yeah. So this is Barry, and Barry is the person that had the pronouns in bio that conservative media just made such a big deal about this. So now you guys are going to hear from the person that conservative media claimed was just totally woke, and you can decide what you think.
You were a little choppy. Hi, Matt. Hi, everyone. How you doing?
Hey, Barry.
Let's just move on it.
Yeah.
We have very limited time, so just get to your main points. please. Thanks.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm here, painfully and unhappily. I've been a supporter and then, from 2012, and then on and off, and then a volunteer, and then, as you know, an employee as of this fall. And, I joined because of the mission and the person behind the mission, and, sadly, my confidence and respect for the leader, the CEO of the organization, has completely eroded to the point where I told James this week that I can no longer follow his lead because I consider the workplace a hostile work environment. It's incredibly toxic. Employees are continually shamed, and bullied, and discounted, and appear to only be objects to one end, which is the furtherance of his agenda, personal agenda. I feel that donors are just treated quite dismissively and seen only as objects to donate money, once again, for the same means, and they're not respected. And I also, have witnessed over time.
For those who are just arriving, this was the first meeting that James O'Keefe had with the Project Veritas board on February 6, 2023. Where they were basically talking about the actual grievances against James, not the story that he sold to conservative media. Well, it wasn't just Fox News. It was bro, look at this. Look at this. They have in this Google Drive, and again, anyone can access this Google Drive. It's pinned to the top of the chat, but let me just show you. And guys, please access this information, peruse through this Google Drive as we're doing it. This is all this is not all the receipts, but this is a lot of the receipts against James O'Keefe. One of the things you're going to see is about the Project Veritas coup. In this folder, these are the transcripts of all the different shows, well, not all the different, but some of the different shows that James went on in the conservative smear campaign. They have him talking to Ben Shapiro. They have him talking to Steve Bannon. They have him talking to Michael Malice. Charlie Kirk was in on this. Jack Posobiec was in on this. I saw them talking about it. Multiple shows at the Blaze covered this. It wasn't just Fox News. Every conservative media, Tim Pool basically shilled for James, did no journalism to find out what was going on. Every single show that had James on to talk about this failed in their basic journalistic responsibility to fact check what he was saying, and they just took his story hook, line, and sinker and sold it to the conservative public, and then they all turned on Project Veritas because of that.
The fiduciary responsibility, in my opinion, not respected of those donors' money, and spent very poorly.
Yep.
And never
Lindsay.
that paid in a private company, let alone a nonprofit that's supposed to be mission-based.
I was ahead of him again.
It seems to me the mission has been lost under one man.
Can you cite any specific examples?
Well, I ran a large company with a lot of employees, and I never lived this lifestyle with black cars running at $250 an hour constantly, picking me up, moving me around, flying a helicopter up to Maine to go sailing, very expensive accommodations when the rest of the staff are staying at one level. I mean, all for one and one for all, especially in a nonprofit. I just never seen this division of.
So some of the things Barry just said are that James took a helicopter on the company dime up to Maine just to go sailing. Anytime they were traveling anywhere, James would stay in the nicest hotel with the nicest suite, and all of the staff would be at more budget accommodations because James just couldn't survive in a normal hotel room. And he did this all on Project Veritas's dime. Another thing I heard is that James would take regular trips to see his girlfriend, and he would claim he was doing fundraising, but he really wasn't doing fundraising. He just wanted Project Veritas to fly him out to go for a weekend with his girlfriend. All of this is against IRS regulation, guys. All of this can completely fuck Project Veritas over when James is doing this. And all the board wanted was for James to repay the company the money. And that one issue of James's spending was actually separate from the fact that James was terrorizing his staff for years. Yeah, I mean, I figured it out. I figured this out based on publicly available information. So anyone could have figured this out based on publicly available information. They just chose not to because they wanted to see James as the hero. But the reason I got in touch with so many of the Project Veritas staff is because I figured this out based on publicly available information.
One person living one way and everyone else living another way. In no regard for.
Okay, having some of those excursions, as you refer to them, to be meeting with donors.
Some of them, yeah.
Okay.
But you know, not all of them. I mean, it's hard to tell what the definition of a donor is anymore, quite frankly. But you know, even still, you know, listen, I'm here as a former employee, okay, and I'm just telling you what I saw.
Okay.
You guys do what you do. And who is that speaking, by the way?
This is Steve Olympic.
Steve Olympic. Okay, I see. So, you know, I lost trust in that. I could no longer get to the point where I couldn't, in good faith, ask people to invest in this organization. You know, the high dollars that I was constantly getting asked to invest in good faith, because I just don't think it was the custody of those dollars was proper and in line with the mission, and certainly in line with how nonprofits should be run. And lastly, I think.
So now he's saying that he was doing fundraising, and he's saying that he was getting uncomfortable asking big donors to make investments in the organization because of how James was spending the money, because it was a misuse of donor money. Like, he's actually being responsible to the people who are paying for the journalism more than James was.
I witnessed, you know, the donors' trust, the board's trust being abused. You know, when, for example, when the executive plan, which was never approved by anyone in the executive that I'm aware of, was just distributed and said that it was approved by the plan. And, you know, and I've been around long enough. I've been in the workforce for 34 years. I've never seen something run this poorly. And I've never seen such a hostile environment, and I've never seen people so taken for granted. And when you issue a plan without any approval of your executive, without any approval of your board, and then it's distributed as both have happened, that's incredibly difficult for anyone trying to follow that lead, and certainly something I became unwilling to follow. You know, I'm happy to go into more specifics, but I know time is limited, and this came to a head with me last week when I told James I could no longer follow his lead. I was told over and over again that people beneath me are supposed to follow my lead no matter what. And I told James, I said, you know, I consider your management title dictatorial, and I'm not I can't in good conscience follow it. I can't in good conscience manage people underneath you. I was given the role of interim CDO because everyone else was pretty much left in that role. It was down to bare bones. I'm trying to keep it going, and it's impossible to manage those people when James would swoop in and just grab someone off my team and direct them to do things. And it was a different person, you know, who was supposed to do that the day before. And people became disillusioned. It's a culture of fear. And I told James I couldn't manage that organization. I couldn't work there anymore and follow his management style. And I said, there's only three things that can happen here, James, is I'll resign, I'll get fired, or things will change, but I can't follow your lead because I consider it dangerous. It's hostile to coworkers. People, you know, keep in mind, I came into this organization knowing no one and having no personal relationships. Just there for the mission and the people that were supposedly supporting the mission, but it became pretty clear it was just about one person. And the mission it really seems to be just there to support that person's personal goals, in my opinion. And it's something got lost along the way. And so, you know, and the last thing I said is, you know, where things change. And I'm there. I think there was a great opportunity to create a great administrative organization underneath an amazing and groundbreaking journalist. And I told James this, you know, I think he's a groundbreaking journalist, but there's not a straight line between being a great CEO and being a great journalist. Very few people in history can do both. And I don't think you can.
Would you say you were terminated because you disagreed?
Yeah, before I was 100%. I was terminated for insubordination because I wouldn't follow his lead. You know, dictate or whatever you want to call it. You know, word for word. And I couldn't agree with it. You know, I already had problems with trying to voice about how people were being treated in certain tactics, and just we dealt with a smackdown every time and follow me, and I brought you on to follow me, et cetera, et cetera. And so I made that clear. Well, let me finish that one question.
So to be very clear, what Barry's talking about is the mentality of James was that he could tell anyone what to do at any time. No one was supposed to question it. No one was especially supposed to question James's spending on things that were not related to Project Veritas. And the minute that someone tried to question James, he would fly off the handle at them in front of the entire staff some of the time to terrorize them, to say, I brought you on, you will do exactly what I say in any given, which is not how you're supposed to lead. It's extremely toxic. And in the case of Barry was like, I'm not doing this, James. And so James fired him unilaterally, which he was not allowed to do.
And John, so then Thursday afternoon, I got an email from James saying that he accepted my resignation, and I responded I never submitted my resignation. And he said, well, therefore you're terminated. And I said I never submitted my resignation, but I cannot follow your lead and support your management style.
Barry, what was your role? What was your role, Barry?
Chief strategy officer.
Say again,
Chief strategy officer. That's what
I was. Chief strategy officer.
Chief what officer?
Strategy
officer.
Too many people talking. Barry, what was your role?
Chief strategy officer. I was brought in to help Dan and the team stand up this new platform that we've been discussing called PVTV, and sort of broaden the message so we can get the awesome journalists out to more people, to more voices in the long form, and hopefully bring in revenue to support fiction that way. I was also brought in to help with development. Over time, it became clear that I was asked to lead development because Randy had left, and I had already been helping out before that on a volunteer basis. You know, I think I did 5 or 6 events.
So, James, I'm sorry, Barry, isn't it, my secondhand understanding is that you've done introductions and facilitated some tangible results in development prior to your coming on board formally in any way. And some of those have resulted in 7-figure donations, is that correct?
I'm not sure about 7-figure donations. I definitely got James and the team over the target of very high net worth people, probably 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 times, you know, adding up to probably 400 or 500 people. You know, I wasn't involved with the follow-up process at that time, but I definitely know, you know, many tens of thousands of dollars have been donated from people that I know, and a lot more, you know, would be cultivated in a pipeline. You know, if we had.
Yeah, so you were a catalyst. I think that's fair to describe you as an introducer, as catalyst, a facilitator.
I was trying to build a proper pipeline that you would for high net worth donors. I mean, you know, and we ended up nicknaming this development department drive-by development, because everyone that had high net worth was just seen as a dollar sign, and they could be asked for $1 million or 250 or whatever their capacity was deemed to be immediately. No relationship building really to speak of. And that's not how I
Barry, have we lost any donors, or have any donors been disparaged as a result of anything that James has done?
that you're knowledgeable of?
I certainly have heard that Goldman story was pretty bad. That was the New York Times. I think it was the guy's name was Goldman. The New York Times confrontation on the street. A lot of people were put off and saw that as something that was very personal and not something that was towards our mission of journalism. For example, I did introduce him to a billionaire family in Houston, and it was a cultivation, and I spent 15 years building that relationship, and he showed up 25 minutes late, and we got an hour at that time, hour and a half maybe, and then I asked him not to ask for any money because it's the cultivation, and I went to the bathroom, and by the time I came back, he'd ask him for cash. That's just not how things work in this world. Deeply embarrassing to me. I've never heard from that guy again. 15-year relationship. I've been building down the drain. In my opinion, he might come back, but I haven't heard from the guy since pretty much.
So Barry set James up with a billionaire family in Houston, and he took James to a meeting. And it was just supposed to be a relationship building meeting because you're not supposed to ask for money on the first visit. This is Major Gifts 101. And no, nothing remotely controversial. Sorry, Joshua has an appointment. We're doing this instead. And so Barry specifically said to James, don't ask him for money. Barry goes to the bathroom. James launches into the pitch for money and completely hosed the relationship with the billionaire family in Houston.
Thank you, Barry.
You helped put together an event in Palm Beach at Beth Bale's house. How would you describe the results from that?
Well, the results were underwhelming. The right people were there, but I think people, these are all professional givers at this level. This is the code. And Charlie Kirk started here asking people for $5,000 a head, and he's getting $5 million out of them now. And those people need to be cultivated and respected. And I think we got on base, but we have a lot of work to do. And I certainly had asked some major league people that were previous TV donors that had left for whatever reason, but now I have my suspicions to attend. They did, and I'm not confident that the follow-up is there to cultivate these people the way they expect to be cultivated.
The zip code 33480 is a unique animal. I refer to it as the motherland, and if properly cultivated, it will yield incredible results. I know because I live here.
Yeah, but it's not drive-by, Bill. If you're seeing it as drive-by or opportunist, it'll do more harm than good. We have a major.
Sure. Well, we both. But
they
we,
out names.
Really rich guys live over there. But James has been in this room more than once for Charlie Kirk, who I met over 10 years ago through the same.
No show tonight. Joshua has an appointment. Sorry. We're doing this instead.
David Horowitz. He did start out 5,000. He'll tell specific stories, and we were in the room when he raised just something over 20 million this year, 22 million in one night last year. There's a lot of groundwork that goes in Spain work and cultivation that goes before that magical moment where people officially make those donations. Yeah, right.
I would like to hear from Tom if there's any other questions for Barry, or Barry has anything else he'd like to say. I would like to keep this moving.
Yeah, Barry, I would just ask, when you met James via helicopter, were there on the way or after when he flew to?
Yeah, you cut out, Matt, but yeah.
You're cutting out a little bit.
Were there donors met on the way to Maine or in Maine when there was a helicopter ride chartered privately?
No, as far as I'm aware, flew from Westchester, he stopped in Newport to pick up a professional captain, which was, the sole purpose was to help sail the boat back. The boat was in such disrepair, I wouldn't go offshore without a professional. I'm a former professional, so I found a professional willing to get picked up and come up. And that mission was really just about, preparing the boat and getting it back to Rhode Island and Long Island Sound. We had dinner at my parents' house and spent time at my parents' house. I mean, I was always trying at that time to introduce him to people, but there was no specific donor mission at all. All his donor stuff came before he left the Montana, in the early part of the month.
I'd love an opportunity to respond when Barry Hinckley is off the phone, please.
Oh, thank you, Bocephus. I appreciate you. Cheers. In fact, I'm ready for another beer. Good timing.
All right, Shire, listen.
Should Mary be allowed to listen to this? Maybe not speak, but let James speak. Brief, I'm concerned about our time because we're at 3:01 right now. Some of you are leaving in 15 to 30 minutes. And we haven't even scratched the surface.
Yeah, I mean, we could continue to talk to employees and amongst each other without ruling on anything and putting forward any formal motion without step up. And obviously, we can't complete and get anything just positive without step on prep, but there's still some fact finding.
If there are going to be accusations made about improprieties, I think it's only appropriate to have the chief executive officer respond with the facts of what happened. And I would like to do that.
I can completely agree, James, but I also, yeah, I agree. Is this something we could just defer to later? Okay, yeah, go ahead. Make it briefly off things.
I'm going to get a stout with cinnamon and vanilla.
I would say there was a man named Barry Hinckley knows who he is. He was based in Maine, and due to weather issues, that was something I spoke with Tom O'Hara about. And Tom O'Hara, I had his verbal consent to book that.
Wait! Don't put words in my mouth. You said you had a donor meeting.
May I finish?
Oh, if you're going to accuse me of consenting to something
No.
I didn't, I would like to defend myself.
No accusations, just stating what I witnessed.
Okay.
John,
I did not consent to it. You told me you had donor meetings. That's what I consented to.
there was a man named who Barry Hinckley knows that was organizing an event in Texas that we organized. Oftentimes, the chief executive officer has to have multiple donor meetings in one day, sometimes meet with multiple billionaires in one day. In this case, there was a gentleman named who was organizing an event in Texas that was present in Maine. Weather issues occurred, and I have in front of me the itinerary from HVN to KUUU, that's Bar Harbor Airport. Weather issues diverted Weather issues diverted the plane to Portland ultimately, and I was not able to arrive to my destination until very late in the evening. That was about.
Was it a plane or a chopper?
It was a helicopter. The other helicopter rides I can remember are one to visit Tucker Carlson.
See, this is where James is lying, where he's saying that he took the helicopter ride to go meet some mystery donor, but in fact, James took the helicopter to go sailing.
At his hunting cabin in Maine, some 2020, a couple $1,000s to go from here to the Hamptons, again, to meet with a billionaire. Oftentimes, the chief executive officer has to, in order to obtain multiple meetings in one business day to increase the revenue for the company, has to make the decision in order to spend a little money, $2,000, $5,000, or $10,000, in order to do this. I was told that this is an optics issue more than a financial one, since the purpose for these trips, whether it's Tucker Carlson or who gives us $50,000 a year, or who organized an event in Texas, that was the intent and the sole purpose behind each of these things.
Good.
That
Here.
is what I think a prudent chief executive officer of any company does in order to raise more revenue for the firm, which is my priority and purpose. I've had some disagreements with, we've had some disagreements about that, but I think it's within the purview of the chief executive officer to raise as much revenue as possible for the organization due to limited time. This is not unique or unusual. As to taking black car service, I don't fully understand how that's an impropriety or any different than an Uber. That's something that Mr. Inkley said. And also, we've had a conflicts of visions over the direction of fundraising. But ultimately, for example, there's a lot of things that are omitted, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood the purpose of that transportation, the purpose that it was intended for those particular forms of transportation.
My understanding was you left your boat in Maine. We were planning a trip to bring it back. We already met a week or so before at the event. We hosted at our house for you to raise money. He was already working with to set the event up. That one was in the bag already. Whatever happened on the backside of that was social.
Were there any other donors in this trip?
No, I'm aware of.
That's a question for James. Yeah, that's a question for James. Did you see any other donors on that trip?
It was the intention of that trip was to follow up with John Trainer.
Just John Trainer.
He organized an event in Texas. I believe it was in October in Highland Park.
So it was just to meet with him, or were there others?
I believe it was just him, to follow up with him.
Okay.
Now is it time to have Tom? I think it's time.
Yeah, I think we should move on.
We'll keep going to executive session, and we can do that, as we, diminish the amount of people on the call, given time constraints. I do think there are a couple of employees who are looking to share their, who I think we should listen to.
Go for it.
We done with me, everyone?
Yes, thank you, Barry.
Thanks, Ray, and thanks for your comments. James also.
Now they're getting into the employee stuff, I think.
We're calling in, and afterwards,
I don't see anyone.
yeah, they're calling in now, and then somewhat abruptly.
So while we're on, this is Stefan. I've got a bit of I have a hard stop at 3:30. I can leave the system up. I'll be texting with John, but I have a very hard stop for another board meeting at 3:30. But you don't need me. You've got Sullivan on, but I'll be available for the new people if I can stop.
I agree.
Perfect, we can continue.
Thanks, Stefan. Is anybody showing up on our call-in line?
Yeah, I've got
Yeah, I
two
just
calls
got it.
now.
I got two in. You want me to look at mid-post?
No.
They're trying to figure out the technology.
You can let her in first.
Okay.
They're trying to find the employees.
Hi.
Yes.
We're going to give you the floor to explain how you perceive the management and the leadership and the culture of the organization.
Okay, and can you hear me okay?
You're loud and clear.
Okay. All right, I just want to make sure I'm in a place where I don't get interrupted.
Good. We're really short of time. I just wanted to let you know, so we want to hear you.
We're not short of time. We're not short of time.
I'm not, but I have an infinite amount of time, but some of our board members are gonna have to be off, but fine, yeah.
Okay. Well, let me go ahead and I am going to give, my perspective. And just for a little bit of background, I joined TV's development organization in December of 2020. I've never been with such a diverse group of individuals who are so mission aligned and committed to delivering on the mission and really good people. I also have never experienced so much turmoil, and dysfunction in a workplace. The negative impact spills over onto personal life, where my husband and grandchildren are telling me that I need to leave the stress of the job at work because I take it out on them, not even realizing I'm doing this. The work environment has noticeably changed to be negative over the last 4 to 6 months, where it's a really hostile work environment. And you're really operating in fear that you're going to be chastised or reprimanded for doing something wrong. I did not want to go into the office today. I was concerned, really, I didn't feel safe going into the office. That has never happened in my entire career. Over the last 4 to 6 months, there are questions, or just continue? Okay. So over the last 4 to 6 months, James has been noticeably more agitated and more arrogant.
What the hell just happened to sound?
Messages as we have been more focused and desperate for money. At times, rude and curt with donors, not really listening to the donors and having a conversation, but demanding that it's just clear the work we do is very, very important.
Can anyone understand what she's saying?
We are
yeah, she went to the bottom of it. I'm just going to fast forward, guys. We've got a lot to get through, so I don't want to listen to a recording that isn't. We can't hear you. Sorry. There's just so you guys know, there's a lot of employee testimony, and so I'm skipping over one thing because the sound is just so bad, but there's a lot more to hear, so we're not going to have a shortage of content. Oh my God.
Earlier testimony and everything.
And
This is Joe Barton. Thanks for all your testimony and everything.
By the way, fun story about Joe Barton. Joe Barton is on the board of Project Veritas. When I was talking with all the Project Veritas journalists, and I was working on my story about what happened, Joe Barton started texting me from an anonymous number. And I had no idea who it was, but I would get these cryptic text messages about Project Veritas, and it had enough information in it that I knew it was someone with Project Veritas, but they wouldn't tell me who they were, and they would just send me these cryptic text messages. And then finally I was like, "Bro, who the fuck are you?" And he texted me something about the Free State Project. Joe Barton lives in New Hampshire and is a Free Stater. And that was how he told me who it was. And it was just it was the weirdest thing. But Joe Barton was not happy with me by the end, I'll tell you that. He was not happy with me, and I don't care, because I told the truth about what happened. And when we got to the stuff with Hannah, that was not flattering to Joe Barton, so he was not pleased.
A lot of negativity there. Can I ask, do you think that James is good at anything? And if so, what are his strengths?
So James is good at
we're back to water voice.
I hope you got some ass. I'm sorry you were late. and I'm sorry about, I was just worried about the shortness of time we have, and I apologize profusely for that, you know, for you're under enough pressure. Can you comment on,
We gotta get a couple more minutes. Because I can't understand what you're saying at all. But we're almost done.
Crystal ball.
And Barry.
Oh, the sound got better. Oh shit.
We gotta find something new. And
this is a crystal ball. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Steve.
Okay. I'm giving you a crystal ball. You can change something today. What is it you would change and why?
I would ask that, Tom and Barry and Dan be given the opportunity to structure the company. It cannot be a flat company. It's not going to grow and succeed. And James focus on journalism and what he's excellent at, writing books. And allow the company to be structured and put things in place that have improved our journalism and improved our stories. I think Barry and Tom and have experience from the marketing and the development side and the platform side of what we're trying to create and grow. Allow that to happen and see where PD can go. It's not that James founded a tremendous organization. We have a tremendous brand, and we don't want to destroy it. If one person can't manage the whole thing, then that's what happens.
No, I know. I know that. I've been through it where I've managed 75 people and 250 people, and delegation was absolutely imperative. Question for you. You mentioned one event, I think it was on Palm Beach Island. Was it?
Palm Beach was, yeah, that was. I'm sorry, Steve, you're breaking up.
Yeah, Elizabeth. All right. So yes, I've been going in and out on this Zoom thing, but okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Sullivan, are you able in queue?
Yeah, I need to let Stefan know. He's the moderator, so just stand by.
Right, and I just hang up, right?
Yeah.
I just hang up.
What's the number he needs to look for? No.
Could be only one in queue.
John Sullivan can do that too.
It ends in.
How many more people do we intend to hear
Not
from?
seeing that in the queue.
What do you think might be open to phone? What do you?
Just a question.
I'm not seeing him in the queue.
Point of order, how many more people are we going to intend to hear from?
I mean, certainly all of the people who have requested to speak, given time issues, but I think we should hear from a few more people from different divisions of the company, not just development.
I'll answer that point and say until the board decides that discussion is over. But anybody can end discussion.
I'm personally inclined to continue until until we as long as we can. If people have to leave, I know you do, we'll be recording it.
Not. That he's in the waiting room.
I think I can take this iPad events down how far, because I do have to get moving.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, I understand. I think this is, it's going to be very tough to get people together again, to
Taking the car, hopefully keep going. I'm taking my iPad, which is what I'm zoomed in on my car, and I'll I'll take it with me.
Hi. Yeah, in Lennon. I mean, I think people have a right to speak and present, given that they do not feel heard. And this is the first time they're having an opportunity.
It looks like I was in.
Okay, please just address your talking to the board and,
Before he does, Matt, I just want to read quickly something from the handbook. Regarding retaliation is strictly prohibited. The company's policy also strictly prohibited any form of retaliation against an employee because the employee complained about harassment or discrimination. Just wanted to get that out there.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Hello, everyone.
Right.
Is it okay if I just kind of say what I'm here today?
Absolutely.
So I'd like to preface just by saying that I personally have not enjoyed the brunt of what we're discussing today. Honestly, James has only ever been kind to me. My colleagues have explained to me that that's because I'm new here. I've been with the company about 6 months, and quite frankly, there's nowhere else I'd rather be. I have the utmost respect for James, and I recognize every day that he's in an unenviable position, what with the pressure he's under and the persecution that he regularly faces from all fronts. That being said, I think these are precisely the reasons behind the mistreatment of employees. Specifically, last week, I was in the room and witnessed an incident where I honestly afterwards I just had to go outside and take a deep breath, and I contemplated what a pinch it is to be compelled to disagree morally or ethically when doing so may result in termination. It was just essentially the entire development staff disagreeing on something that we thought was very important, and everyone was basically told that it's my way or the highway. If you don't like it, you can leave, which it just kind of hurt morale in a big way, and I think it's, during the release of the most important story in the world, it's been frustrating. I very recently was asked to join the development team, and in my short tenure there, a lot of donors expressed frustration about they don't want to pay for things like the Project Veritas experience or things like that. It kind of makes me feel like a snake oil salesman sometimes. It's not easy to say no to James, so when compelled to do so for whatever reason, people fear they might lose their jobs, and I worry, especially lately, when it might suddenly be me berated in front of my colleagues. And again, I can't imagine the pressure James is under, so I've always kind of assumed that that's just an outlet for that.
So if people say no to James, they're afraid of losing their job. They're afraid of James unhinging on them. And at the same time, the employee's saying, I understand the pressure he's under. I get it, but this isn't cool.
And, we all love and respect James, but we're all here for the mission. And I think that's why this is happening. So I don't know what the solution is, but I do know we need to address it somehow if we're able to maintain an atmosphere where we can all focus on getting our meaningful work done. Like Eric Sprackman, I don't know if he's speaking to you guys or has or what, but I've had the pleasure of working directly for Eric since I started. That guy is a powerful, tireless force for PV, and for his own sanity, he might leave the company, and it just breaks my heart. I just don't want to watch these valuable, wonderfully dedicated people just disappear, and I feel like I'm kind of awaiting my turn at the same seemingly inevitable result. So that's really all I wanted to say.
What is your feeling on people's view of the tenability? Continuing this way versus departures versus change? What would you recommend for change? Do you believe that people are looking to leave? Since you were in the office, you speak to people all day.
Yeah, honestly, I actually have already spoken to James about this a little bit. I actually was compelled to write my own letters to James, just a short one, but just to say, I don't know.
No, they all knew. But things come to a head when they come to a head, and this is when they came to a head.
Know exactly what's been going on, but it's wall to wall in that building right now. Like, people are thinking about leaving because they're frustrated. Like, it's a lot of people, and a lot of my colleagues that I respect and admire.
The reason that this came to a head when it did, people say it was because of the Pfizer story. It had nothing to do with the Pfizer story. The reason that this came to a head when it did is that James lost it on a senior executive at the company in the office in a way that every single person in the office heard James screaming at the senior executive in the company. So I think there was a lot of actually like sorrow that it happened at the same time as the biggest story in Project Veritas history, which was Pfizer. But the reason this happened is because James lost his temper and unleashed on a senior executive in the office in front of the entire staff.
Admire and learn a lot from are thinking about leaving. And I don't know what the answer is, but it's definitely untenable, I'd say. Like, I don't know if it's really my place to speak in favor of ex-employees or employees thinking of leaving, but it just feels like PD might always stay in this perpetual state of training and never have like a core force get past the next big hurdle.
Understood. Is there anything else you'd like to add? What you see in the culture of the organization or the way it's managed and led?
I don't know. I mean, I've been wrestling with this for days, and it's just, I'm stressed. I apologize. It's hard for me to think clearly right now. We all care. We all care about the mission. That's why we're here. And we just want to make sure that I don't know, just be completely frank, and maybe I'm not qualified to make this assessment, but I just think things might be better if James wasn't specifically, if you're not specifically involved in personnel management. Like, I don't know if that's the answer, but that's one thing that I could see might alleviate a lot of these problems. We talked about that briefly, James and I, the other day. It seems like he was receptive and was contemplating, but
of the interaction, as you were, I think, the first one to approach him in good faith and share your feelings about the culture and the environment of the office.
Again, what I've already said to you like 3 times, the company did know. All of this was common knowledge. But when these types of situations happen, usually there's not like a coordinated effort to get everyone in the same room to talk about what's going on, because James had thoroughly terrified the company from even addressing these issues. So when James lost his shit on the senior executive, when the entire company heard it, that was when it came to a head. And that was the moment where it spurred the employees to actually talk to each other about it. And that's when the document was put together. But it's not as if people didn't know. This is why you were wrong when you said HR caused this. Everyone knew what was going on. No one wanted to address it with James. But the situation became such that like half of the company was going to quit if it wasn't addressed with James. That's why this meeting happened. Because when James lost his shit on the senior executive, like, there were a lot of employees that were going to walk out. And so this was an effort to coordinate everyone together to constructively confront James on his behaviors. And the hope, and I do believe this, the hope was that James would hear from his employees how his behavior had impacted them, and he would take it seriously, and he would change his behavior. Because you're going to hear in these testimonies, and you're already hearing it, they all love James. They all had reverence for what James did. No one wanted James to leave Project Veritas. That was James's choice. It was his choice to burn it down. They were trying as best they could to address the situation. Now, could they have done it differently? Oh, yeah, they could have. I wish I had been in contact with them about this before they did this, because I could have advised them to do this completely differently, because this is my area. Like, this is my specialty area within industrial organizational psychology. I know how to do this. But they didn't know that I was talking to them, but I wasn't talking to them about this, and they were doing the best they could. So they didn't do it perfectly.
No,
Well, it essentially, sorry, go ahead.
nothing. I salute your forthrightness and transparency.
That's the thing. Like, I don't want to have any secrets between me and James or anybody else. Like, we're a team, and I just, it needs to be said. Like, you could feel it. If you were there, you could have felt it. It sucks James was busy at that present moment, because maybe it would have gone differently, and if everybody was face to face, I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, in our conversation, it seems like James was open to the criticism, and he wasn't like, he didn't react emotionally. He was hearing what I had to say, and it seemed like he appreciated my reaching out and assured me that, I wouldn't be fired for something like that. But then, it essentially came down to the same thing that got what I believe led to the firing of Tom and Barry, which is just, you do have to agree ultimately. Like, regardless of your experience and your personal thoughts on the matter, you do ultimately have to agree, or it's your job. But that's how people are feeling right now, and it just feels antithetical to what we stand for, and it's just frustrating.
Do you believe that there is currently any building consensus within the groups, and then within the groups at what they determine as management?
Can you rephrase that question?
Do you believe that there are any consensus building among the business units? You were in comms, now you're development and management, I think, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it seems like everyone expects some kind of change, and I mean, almost everyone at HQ. Like, I don't think this really affects the wonderful journalists we have on our team. As most of their time is in the field, so we don't really see them too often. But I can't speak to other departments. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of frustration, in multiple departments in the building. Comms, Devo.
By the way, and I'm just going to say this because I want to say this. The undercover journalists at Project Veritas all went by code names. They were actually like called code names in like the group chat, and some of those code names were dumb. I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone, but some of those code names were dumb, and I would have felt dumb using them.
Finance, production. I think our instinct in the moment is to kind of endure.
I don't know. I think that's
if there's a moment where people feel like they're being land-based unfairly, we all kind of just discreetly apologize for them to each other and keep our heads down and just keep the shit moving.
Have you observed any real, let's say, stark or clearer distinction between at HQ when James is in the office versus in the field? Is there a difference in that?
I hate to say this, like, it actually breaks my heart to say this, but we get more work done when James isn't at HQ.
We get more work done when James isn't there.
And I don't know. Sorry, go ahead. Okay. I was just gonna say, like, I don't even know really what I'm advocating for here or what that would entail. Because obviously, I believe PV, James is the face of PV, and people watch more of our content than his face is in the content. We can measurably prove that. So I feel like that's important to have. I don't know. I mean, I know that there's less anxiety in the office with James is elsewhere doing stuff that's important for him to be doing.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Let's keep it moving. If there's no more questions, let's, All right, guys.
Thank you. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Unwoke. My name is my name is been working for Project Veritas since January 2019. I was hired as an undercover journalist originally, and I transitioned to the IT team around the end of 2020. At that point, we had Trevor Tomlinson as the IT director. We made a move to bring in an individual named Michael Schaefer, who was going to be the permanent IT director at the time, to look over Trevor and myself. Trevor decided to take leave at that point, to leave, which left Mike to be by himself. And when Mike had basically one day of good work at Project Veritas. After that, and I was the only one helping out Mike in the IT department, so just me and him. I was one-on-one. Whenever there was a problem, it was Mike and me coming to help, especially when it came to games. And I'll never forget, and it's my fault, because I let this occur in front of me multiple times, and I was young still at the time. I mean, I still am, but I've grown and learned a lot. And I watched as one time James used to hate the word process. He didn't like the word process. For some reason, it triggered him. And Mike was talking something IT related in the leadership meeting. I didn't know it was time to, I'm not in the leadership meeting. But Mike had said to James that there needs to be a process to it. Yeah. Because whatever he was trying to do, trying to push it forward without going through the right way that you should be going through. And I understand, some people don't understand the IT world. I get it. It's different. But the minute he had said that, unfortunately, James had, it was ultimate against Mike James. And every day, Mike James, or what he did, the minute James saw him, the minute there was ever a thing where we had to help James, it was just anxiety-driven ridicule, especially in front of people. And it was horrible because, I wanted to pick up a little bit, but at the same time, I wasn't perfect, I'll be honest with you. My friend, I love, there's nothing against James. I hate doing that. It gave me anxiety to come on the call. But I can't lie. Mike Schaefer feared coming to work every day. That man feared, he literally told me one time, I don't want to come in, James is a bully, and I know he's just going to absolutely break me apart in front of everybody else, and no one's going to say anything. And he didn't. And that's me suing myself, and that's myself suing as well. But, he just took it and took it and took it. And one day, he found this guy named Josh, who's our IT director now, love Josh. But the one thing that I was so happy, and unfortunately, when Mike left, was that James liked Josh. And I was so happy for that. That's great. I literally prayed every night that James would like Josh so that I wouldn't have to deal with the anxiety I would get every single time I walk into his office and worry. And I didn't think James only knows me one time the whole time being there. I will tell you that straight up. He's been nothing but great to me. He's a great person. He's a great leader. And I still believe he's the face of Project Veritas forever. But I also can't ignore that. It may not happen to me, but Mike was actually my friend too, because he helped me learn to get to where I'm at right now. And it pained me every day. He was either really late, he wouldn't come at all sometimes. And then people would be like, well, Mike's not, why am I not Mike's not going? I would be like, Mike's afraid of change. Because one, it just doesn't sound like, it just sounds childish, it sounds like, but it's the truth. It was just the utter truth. And Mike just couldn't wait to leave. He's like, I love Project Veritas. I believe in everything James does. There's nothing against anything he built. I completely respect him. But I literally cannot take getting ripped apart every single day I come to work and fearing my boss every single day. And it's honestly the one time that I've had that one-on-one
interaction where I see James unfortunately not, I don't know what to call it. It's either he likes you or he doesn't. And unfortunately, he didn't like mine. And I got to see that side of him a while. It went from around like February 2021 until Josh came on around right before the club. So I saw it. I went through months of it. And I helped Mike as much as I could. And there was times I would go to help James just so Mike wouldn't have to go in. I knew things would be a little bit easier on me. And, maybe I can get things fixed so that Mike wouldn't have to deal with that. Now, I can't attest to anybody else's one-on-one because I wasn't really there. I'm not going to lie to you. But I will tell you this. My friends, my coworkers are my friends. I've been here I'm going to 5 years at this place. That's like 20 years. And I mean that in a good way. It's just the type of fucking work we do. Excuse my language, I'm sorry. It's just the type of work we do. And, I'm 26 years old. I never thought I'd see the world that I see. And I see the world in a completely different way than I ever thought I would. But it can't, I've seen the rollover. I'm not me, Higginson, but I've locked out people when they're fired countless times. Way more than I put new equipment in their hands. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's just the truth. And like I said before, I love Jake, but he's really one of my closest friends. And it pains me. It pains me to this day. It pains me. I hate it. But I can't sit there and let what happened to Mike happen to more people that I care about. I see it happen. It used to happen to Mike, for a short period of time, but I've seen it trickle down. It's so a lot more people. It's not to me. Like I said, I don't get any of it. And, maybe it's because I do it. I don't know. But I've seen it. I've seen it with my friends. And I get it. People have disagreements and people may think differently, but that's what makes our organization so great, that people think differently and then they can, have the courage or at least be able to feel confident that they can at least speak up and have a difference of opinion. Now people don't feel that way. Now people feel that if they have a different opinion and he doesn't like it, then they're going to deal with shit. And they're going to get ridiculed and ripped in front of everybody else and no one's going to say anything. And I'll be honest with you, nobody does anything. Nobody's done anything for this. Nobody's done anything. Because nobody wants to deal. Nobody wants to deal with that shit. Nobody wants to deal with that. And it's sad that we're at this point, but it's for Project Veritas to continue and be the way it is, and continue and fight a good fight and have the pull and push that we have. We can't have rollover like we did, and it's just the truth. It's just the inevitability. I'm telling you, it's what I see. I see it.
So essentially, to kind of sum this up, because I know it's a little bit hard to hear, but what he's saying is that he is in IT and he's responsible for locking people out of their accounts once they're fired or they quit or any of these things. And it's not tenable for the company to have rollover like this. And everyone knows that the turnover is because of James. So the company is turning over employees at an extremely fast rate. At the same time, the company's trying to grow, and you can't have high turnover in a company that's trying to grow and still have that company grow effectively.
I'm the person that onboards and offboards people. I see it all the time. This person should have gotten it. Why is this person getting fired? Why is this? It's like there's more firing than hiring.
There's more firing than hiring.
Change. And I don't know what it may be, but I want to say that I do believe, like I said earlier, James is still the face of this company. And he built it. I'm not taking anything away. I can never do what he did. I can never deal with or wake up every day and feel. The closest thing I ever felt was when we woke up today and he was raided by the FBI. And I had to go and get his devices myself. And I saw the news stuff and it finally hit me that I was like, wow, this is actually atrocious. Holy shit. These people are horrible people. I can't imagine waking up and dealing with that. So I'm not taking anything away from him when it comes to that at all. And I like I said, he's my friend. But at the same time, I can't BS around what I see. And I see my friends and my colleagues, they don't feel confident in ever giving their differences of opinion at all. They think they'll be ridiculed and belittled in front of everybody else, and then nobody else will say anything. And two, they just feel like the company is not focused fully on what we should be focusing on, what we should be doing, which is
Project Veritas work, which is undercover journalism. That's what we were hired for. And that's just the honest truth.
Your first thing was it?
What are the things deviating away from
Okay.
when you say, focusing on undercover journalism, versus what?
First, what exactly, the theater and the acting, and I get it, and I get it. James is like it takes thing away from all of it, which everyone should have. Everyone should have something, that takes you away from like work in your life, and you can enjoy something. I understand that, but when you pull people, like when we got pulled to do, Oklahoma, I'm a team player, I get it, and especially I'm the IT guy, I gotta be a team player. Like I gotta make sure everything works. But like I'm sitting there, I'm like, why are we doing this? Like how is it helping TV? No offense, like, and I'm not comms, I'm not production, I'm not, like, but I can go on a comment on Instagram, I can go on a comment on YouTube, I can go to the comments and read what people say when we do these things. They don't think it attracts the brand, they don't think it helps what we're doing, fighting the fight, and they honestly get turned off by it. They think it's just not Project Veritas. It's one thing for James to be doing it, that's all fine, I have nothing against that. But the people that were hired to the company were hired to be working, to be doing undercover journalism. And any of their attributes are supposed to be used for those types of jobs. I feel like that's not where we're going when we do these. And I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy it. I'm not going to lie to you and say I didn't enjoy it. But I will say that I thought the whole time, I'm like, how does this help TV? Because it's not like it was helping TV. Like I didn't see any okay, we did this, now go up this amount of money or anything. Not, of course, not money, not that it's development, but it's just the truth. And that's what I have to say to that comment.
I really appreciate your thoroughness and candor, and you've addressed many things. One thing I wanted to ask, because at 5 years, you're over 3 times longer tenure than the average person at PV, which is about 1.4 years at average turnover. Is that correct? That's what.
The average tenure at Project Veritas was 1.5 years. The person they're hearing from now worked there for 5 years, and he's worked there over 3 times longer than the average staff member works there. Guys, that is an appallingly low or high turnover. That's appalling. Think about if you worked at a place, and you can just apply this to whatever job you have, and the average length of time that someone works at that place is 1.5 years before they either get fired or they quit. That is the type of environment that James O'Keefe created. And I want to say this too. I know that there are probably sexier parts of this meeting to get to, and we're going to spend some time listening to the employee testimony. I think it's very important. As a personal thing for me, this might be boring for people, but as a personal thing for me, most of these employees haven't been heard. And as long as we can hear the audio, I kind of want to sit here and listen to all the employee testimony, because these people haven't been heard. These people have been raked over the coals by conservative media. The people that signed on to that letter publicly have been lied about, have been smeared, have been attacked by them. They never got a chance to tell their story. They never got a chance to have it be heard by the public. And so I know some people might find this boring, but I'm going to listen to as many employee testimonies as we can make out through the audio. It might not be perfect, because I think that these people have a right to be heard.
I've been told. And you commented on the turmoil tenure. So I have kind of 2 questions. One is some outsiders. Well, let me ask the first question that I have. This is the main one. In that 5 years, and you talked about the FBI raid and all of these other extremely stressful events that have been visited upon us in the last year plus. Have you seen a change in the, have the behaviors always been there, or do they amplify from stresses? You know, understandably, most human beings couldn't handle anywhere near the stresses that James and all of you have been under. So I salute you and I salute James for that. But I think have you seen a change in qualitatively or just quantitatively in some of the issues that you brought up?
I honestly believe that when we first started, and because I remember when I first got hired, Project Veritas to now. So I've seen James transition from 2019 to now. And I've seen everything that's come from there, from the Amy Roback tape to then to the Minnesota story, and that's realistically when it really started to. I could see James, it was a lot, even a lot for me. I would and all my friends would say, overwhelmed with like what I would tell them, like, I would put out the story about what was happening, and it was too overwhelming for them to even hear. So like I understand the overwhelming and like emotion part of it, and it was for all of us. But I honestly think like when we hit the Minnesota story, and from then on the stress level 100% picked up. Like it's just the truth. It went from nobody used to care like if James in the office or not, and they meant it in a good way. Like it wasn't like James in the office. Oh, okay, guys, not off. I can I don't have to worry about getting yelled at or something like that. Like it never used to be like that. James used to be in office all the time. It was work was fine. It just just with stress and everything it's just natural. But you have to check yourself. Because I don't know if you realize this, but like we want and are stressed. Like whether you like it or not, because we are around them the most. And we care about Project Veritas, which you still. We're gonna treat and friends with respect. And like he does a lot of the time too. But a lot of the time sometimes he does. And it's just the truth. And I get it, you're the boss and CEO, I completely respect that. But when people can't even we're supposed to, feel free enough to like, give our opinion, and then at the end of the day, if everybody else votes against it, then that's the way it is, and it's fair and square. But at least you were able to voice your opinion confidently and respectfully. But I feel like now it's not like that. People don't feel like confident. The only time that people probably feel like confident is when everybody at the company is in one room at all. Because you kind of have, so many voices that people will always speak up for each other. But when you're in an office environment with 8 people coming around, there's only about, I'd say like 25 people, 30 people in the office. After a while, people just are like, I don't feel like getting yelled at. And I get it. And I understand that, but it shouldn't be like that. And that's the way it is, unfortunately. And getting back to what you said, I honestly would say, yeah, of course. Right when November 2020 kicked off and we started, the Biden administration took over and they really saw, in my opinion, they saw our pull and push in America, and that's why they went full throttle to stop us. And that's when all the stress and anxiety kicked in. Rightfully so. I'm not taking that away. I'm not saying that that's not like normal. It is. But you have to learn that you have to respect your employees too and their opinions. You can't just blast out on them because you're and I get it. It's so easy for me to say because I don't have that stress. It's so easy for me to say you can't go off on those people because you like you're not dealing with that, and I'm not. But you have to because that's what a good leader would do. They would protect themselves. Of course, we're all human. We make mistakes. There will be times that you might have yelled at someone that you shouldn't, and then when you realize that, and maybe somebody even tells you that because I know people have. I've tried to talk to James about stuff, but I'll be honest with you. I don't want to, like, I saw Michael Schaefer, I was like, I don't want to be on that end. I really don't. And I like being president. I like having that conversation and being able to talk to him. And I tell him stuff in confidence, and he told me in confidence too. But at the same time, I see my colleagues, and, like, it's wrong. And I can't just sit back and take it. And, whatever happens, happens. I've been here for a long time. I love this place, but it's just the truth. I have to say what I need to say.
Thank you so much.
I know everyone knows your commitment to the team. Have you thought about rethinking your commitment to TV based on the way the culture is?
The honest truth is, I always told everyone the only way I would ever leave the company is if I was fired or something like ridiculous happens. But we're at a crossroads. I'll be honest with you. There's a crossroads right now because I can't be like, I'll stay and then James just goes back just because you're going to drive away people that are good for this company that help the company and help spread the word of undercover journalism and all the stories that we do. And when we're at this crossroads where you can't keep going down the same path, it's just atrocious. It's not going to build a company. It's going to break it down and deteriorate it. Like, there needs to be a change. And that doesn't mean, and I know James, I know how he is. Just like he probably knows a lot about me. And one thing I know about James, it's not going to be like, take some time and then come back and go back to what you do because he's not going to change. Like, he needs to learn that, like, okay, maybe, like, you built a company. Don't get me wrong. I understand it. But it's 2023 now. Like, you can be the face and you can still do the undercover journalism. But in my honest opinion, and like I said, I'm just an IT guy, okay? I'm giving my opinion. It may mean nothing. But you can't be firing all those people. Especially the way you did it to Barry and Tom. I respect Tom, and I respect Barry, and I've only known him a couple months. But if there's one thing I've learned about that guy's got plenty of freaking money. He does not need to be doing what we're doing.
That's
he does
true.
Not need to be helping us.
That's actually a really good point. And I didn't want to say that, but now that that's been said, I will say that. So Barry, who is the chief strategy officer that James fired unilaterally, he's the one that had the pronouns in the bio. Barry comes from money. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't like that information hasn't been put out there and I don't want to do that. But it was just said by the guy who's giving his testimony right now. Barry didn't need to be at Project Veritas for a job. The reason that Barry was at Project Veritas was because he was friends with James because they were both into sailing. And so he had volunteered with Project Veritas. He had hooked James up with high dollar value donors and all that stuff. And then James brought him in because Barry had all this experience and he had all these connections. Barry did not need that job. And I think that's a really important point. I'm glad he made it.
You know, I kind of I think of it like Trump. Like, Trump didn't need to go and run for president. He had plenty of money to be chilling. And this guy, Barry, he could be chilling, not worrying about anything. But he took the time out of his day to come out and work for us and help us, especially help our development team that obviously needs help. And you're going to go touch the knees. It's like being in a park and somebody's like, yeah, let's go play a basketball. And then they take a hammer in your knee and say, yeah, let's go play now. It's unbelievable. And I can't. It kills me. And like I said, I listened to orders. I locked out Tom Barry, just like I always would. I didn't go against anything. Because I respect and I know that James is the leader. But I'll be honest, with managing people, he's not good at it. He's not good at managing people. He's just sometimes he's just too cruel. And I get it. You have to be stern as a boss. And I get that. But it's to an extent too. If you start to see that a lot of people are just tuning out and you're wondering why people don't have motivation to come to the office and motivation. Why do you think that is? Not that they don't care about TV. Man, we got people like my buddy Eric keeps posting about TV when he doesn't even need to be. Because he loves it.
And another thing I'm going to say too, and you might hear it in this guy's voice, but one of the things that was very striking to me at Project Veritas, at least among the people I talked to, is I don't know how to say this other than the employees at Project Veritas that I spoke with are good salt of the earth people. There's a very certain just very comfortable kind of normal they're just good fucking people, man. They're not politicians, they're not fucking influencers, they're not fucking content creators. They're just good salt of the earth people that cared about doing their job.
But then you have these people, then they don't feel comfortable at work. They just feel like they're about to get destroyed. They can't actually get their own opinion. They just say, yeah, whatever.
Whatever does that. Whatever gets me out of this meeting, so I don't have to worry about getting absolutely ripped apart by everybody else. And that's one thing. And I don't know. I've never even told James this, but I always made it my duty. After my paper, I said it to myself.
Well, to be very clear, it wasn't just because he liked sailing. That was how they met. Barry had a metric ton of highly practical experience that was extremely valuable. I'm just not saying what it is. You're going to have to take my word for it.
Listen, I love you. But the day that shit happens to me, I don't need anybody to stand up for me. I am a loud, and he knows I'm loud. I will not take it. But thankfully so, I never ever had to take it. And God's made blessing. I don't know. But James is a great undercover journalist. He's a great freaking leader when it comes to Project Veritas, but he's not good at managing people. He's not good at hiring and firing. In my honest opinion, I don't think he is. And that's actually, it can't be, and I'm almost done. And it can't be like I said, he can take some time when he comes back, but he can't be managing the people when he comes back. He still be the leader and everything, but you can't be the one, hiring and firing people, because honestly, he was fired Tom. I'm sorry, it's so stupid. It's so stupid. From an outside perspective, it's the stupidest thing ever. I could not believe when I got that. I could not freaking believe it. I was like, this is unreal. No, I'm sorry. I get so emotional about it because I care. And like I said, I'm going to cut myself off now. Like I said at the beginning of this, I respect him. He's my friend. I love him to death, man. I don't care if he hates me after all this. I don't care. My opinion will not change. But I have to say something because I care and love my friends and colleagues as well. I've been here long enough to say that. So thank you for
You've been extremely clear and totally there's no. I really appreciate your candid and no filter. The extreme candor that you've exercised. But what would you say to somebody who was an outside advisor, not on our board, that says, James, just get ready for a lot of turnover, or somebody that said to me, this is somebody else that said to me that's not on our board, that would say, there's a lot of, you don't understand nonprofits. They have more turnover than other organizations.
Not a year and a half tenure.
And some of us that have been on nonprofits would disagree with that.
I have a question for you.
Okay. Should I
It's quick. Were you ordered to lie? Are you in charge of social media accounts or somebody else in charge?
No, I'm not in charge of social media accounts. I don't have any passwords for any social media accounts or anything. I'm in charge.
Do you know
my phone for
who's in charge of the social media accounts? Do you know?
Eric. I honestly, I think it would be Eric, but I honestly do not know. Like I said, I'm not in communications. I don't have any information when it comes to who's in charge of any of the social media accounts whatsoever. I don't have any.
Okay. Thank you.
You can regard my questions as rhetorical.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. You shouldn't.
Very true. Come on.
And honestly, I don't know where else to point the direction besides the person that's hiring and firing. There's some people of course deserve to get fired. Don't get me wrong. There are people that were fired that deserve it, but there are also people that got fired that I personally think didn't deserve it. That's just my opinion on it. But I'll tell you one thing: Barry and Tom definitely did not deserve to get fired. It's ridiculous. And I would say it's just fake. And I don't care how you take it. I don't care if you wouldn't like it, because I care about James enough that I would tell him this. I wouldn't be happy. Because it got to that point where it's like, I was going to say anyway, whether this whole situation happened or not, I was going to tell him Monday, no offense, James, I don't agree with firing.
Thanks, Terrell. I appreciate it.
You can do whatever you want, but I think it's a horrible decision for this company. I think it's a horrible, it just shows that we're just going to continue our high turnover rate, because Barry was here for 3 months or whatever. So, that's all.
I right, Jan. Good night.
Thank you.
Just to see you, I mean, thank you so much. You have the most compassionate and forthright statement regarding what's going on. Thank you.
No, thanks, Angela.
I don't know if you can hear me, but thank you very much for your time and your candor. It's extremely useful, and I have to say, somewhat amusing as well.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
yeah, thanks. I won't screw up your, or should I say, fuck up your first name again, hopefully.
Not that hard.
Don't worry. Thank you, and you think about running for office.
Let's keep it moving.
Let's see, I think again. It's, please.
Yep.
And then-
It's Stefan.
Hey, how's it going?
Just tell everyone who you are, how long you've been, what your role is, and what's on your chest.
Yeah, sure. My code name's Lithium. I'm one of the undercover journalists here. I've been here for just north of 3 years.
Huh. I know.
And yeah, so with everything that's come to light, I feel the need to speak out about.
I had a lot of conversations with this one.
Some things that have happened recently that have troubled me and upset me. And you know, in regards to James, and the first one is the main one that I want to.
This one, I think I can say this now because I think I can. I'm not going to say his name. Do you guys remember the Twitter story where Project Veritas basically got a Twitter executive to like shit talk Elon Musk on camera, and everyone was shocked that it was a guy instead of a girl. So like Project Veritas was sending guys out on dates with other guys. Do you guys remember that? That's this one.
Focus on, which is November 17th. I was given a call by Gisto at the time, and it was about noon. And he called and he said, "Hey, listen, James wants somebody at."
And by the way, that wasn't just one Tinder profile, and that was how he got that story. He cultivated that relationship for months. Like, it's stuff like this that really pissed me off when I was watching things like Sarah Gonzalez on The Blaze basically say, all these undercover journalists at Project Veritas, they're all replaceable. Anyone can do that job. To get that, I had an extensive conversation with him about this. Like, to get that Twitter story, he had to cultivate that relationship with that Twitter senior executive for months, every day for months, to be able to get to the point where he got the executive out on a date, they went and got drunk, and he got the story. So no, the undercover journalists at Project Veritas were not easily replaceable.
On right now, there's the education subject. I can't find anybody else. And part of that too is, I want your girlfriend to come too. Like, it's all good, it's all taken care of, but we need that as a cover because, the idea was they know TV's here. We want you to be able to list an education subject. You can't be affiliated with us and like mingling with us while you're there because of that, but also at the same time, you don't want to be the alone guy at the bar. So it makes perfect sense. Now, I think immediately, just a weekday, and my girlfriend works from home. And I think immediately there's no way it's going to work. She's going to call all day. Well, I ended up talking to her. I said, let me get right back to you. I ended up talking to her, and she speaks to her boss, and she made, her boss made an exception for her, and she ends up actually using her own PTO to take the day off and to come with.
So what happened, just to make sure everyone's clear, is James needed this journalist to come and help him on a story, but they thought that it would look fishy if he was by himself because they wanted him at the bar. And so he got his girlfriend to take a day off of work on her own PTO to come and help them with the story.
With me to New York. So we slammed the bag together. We went to New York and we sat down at the bar and we started eliciting subjects, right? Now we saw a few people from TV, but you know, they understood, which I made very clear to Jitsu that everyone understands that we weren't to engage in everything that was going on. So we're sitting at the bar, the carriage lounge with Mohawk, and I'm eliciting, and my girlfriend's role was really just to be there as my girlfriend and just talk to a wife or something like that. So I'm doing my thing, and I get to about when I have 3 contacts made of education subjects, and I look over to my right, and James was at the bar, and he was like 6 feet away, and he's looking right at me. And James is pointing towards the subject that he wants me to talk to. All right. And I knew what the plan was, so I tried to not ignore James, but not engage because I knew this was a dicey situation. Well, this turned into RC coming in and going to the other end of the bar, and all of a sudden James was engaging a subject himself. So this quickly cleared out the bar, as you can imagine. But before that, James had a conversation with a man probably about 6 or 10 feet away from me. Him and this guy had a very brief conversation, and the guy I'm not sure exactly what was said. It was a lot of packed bar at the time, and all of a sudden, I figured, well, he's here, he's doing this, I'm going to get a B-roll shot. James is talking to somebody, I got to get a B-roll shot. So I get a perfect B-roll shot. And we go back to the room. Well, James's audio failed, and he was loud mic'd up, and it completely failed. James never acknowledged the fact that, his audio failed or anything. He just, well, let's see what we got. And we checked, and there was virtually nothing. Very, very chopped up audio, didn't have anything. So he wanted to check my B-roll. This turned into pulling up the B-roll, and it slightly caught the audio, but it didn't catch it enough to be able to do anything with it. And part of that was the bartender coming up and saying to my girlfriend, do you want another drink? And she said, yeah, sure, I'll take one, right? When we're back in the room and we discover that James makes it a point and thinks that there's this important moment that my girlfriend spoke over, and that not only that, but I was responsible for not capturing the audio. So in the hotel room, both of us got lightly lectured, including her, a non-employee, a non-contractor, anything, somebody who just came to help. We get lectured about how, the audio, we need to not talk whenever he's doing something. We need to be more vigilant. I should have done something else. It's never been my job to capture someone else's audio ever. That does fall under eavesdropping, actually. And so this happened, and I'm upset about it, but I don't really say anything. And what got me to the point where I was, where I wasn't able to forget about it was whenever I started hearing other colleagues coming to me. I had 2 separate colleagues that came to me and said that James was talking bad about me and my girlfriend, specifically my girlfriend, behind our back. And the exact quote that I was given from a colleague was that it fucked the whole thing up or something, or Lithium's girlfriend fucked the whole thing up talking over, or something like to that effect. And I got that from 2 separate colleagues that told me that. And, you can imagine how that made me feel after we, jumped last minute. No, thank you. Anything like that.
So essentially, James's audio didn't work when they were trying to talk to someone. And the girlfriend who just came along to help doesn't do any of this stuff. Basically, the bartender asked her if she wanted a drink and she said yes. And That's apparently a giant ass no-no. And James was pissed off that his own audio failed. And so he started shit talking the undercover journalist and his girlfriend, who was just there to help out, to other Project Veritas employees because his own audio failed.
And I just, I honestly, it really hurt because I didn't expect, I never had any sort of treatment like that from James. And I didn't think James would do something like that or talk behind the backs of us, especially after we didn't even get a thank you. But, we did our job, or I did my job, and he came along and didn't have to. And it just felt very unappreciated, and, it killed my morale. The follow-up to that is that when the whole Jitsu thing, I spoke up after Jitsu, when we had the call that Jitsu, the Jitsu was departing, and I spoke up, and I know that, there was really, Jitsu cut me off, and he was like, all right, I appreciate it, listen, and everything like that. But at the end of the day, nobody else really said anything. James didn't say anything on the call. Dan did and everything, and but Dan did at the end acknowledge, part of what I said. Dan didn't say anything as far as indirectly to what I said, but he did call me later that night. I'm on my way to get my daughter, and James called me, and he immediately tells me he wants to talk about what I said on the call. And I started talking to him, just, the way that I talk, and I can tell he was agitated, but he snapped after the first maybe sentence that I said. And I'm paraphrasing, but it was something very close to the effect of, first of all, you don't gotta talk to me like you're in a fucking job interview. It was aggressive. And I was taken aback by it because I'd never heard him talk like that. That was the first time that I had heard him speak to me like that. And I told him, I said, James, I'm just trying to talk to you about the situation. This conversation went on. I was driving to get my daughter for a while, where James basically continued conflating my questioning of his decision to, make Jitsu team captain and all the decisions that were made with not being mission driven or, not being fully on board. And that's the thing that I see is a perpetual problem. I think James is very talented at conflating, having questions about his leadership with not being aligned with TV's core values and mission. And I just couldn't, I couldn't disagree more. I ended up getting to pick up my daughter, and she, I told him, I said, James, I gotta go. I'm getting my daughter right now. And he just said, have fun with your daughter, and hung up the phone. And so, I gotta be honest, I want to share this too. Since then, I haven't felt, and with other things that I've heard from colleagues and experiences they've had, it made me feel very uneasy about the company that once was my dream job. It doesn't feel like that anymore. I'm getting a little emotional talking about it, to be honest. I come from a small town, and this is the biggest break I've ever been given in my life. But, I can only withstand some, a certain kind of treatment, and I demand a certain level of respect. And
No one's going to report on this. I promise you. No one's going to report on this. Watch what happens. I hope I'm wrong, but no one is going to report on this.
This literally has turned from my dream job into something where I can't even believe I'm on this call. It just feels very hostile. It feels like, James has 100% absolute control over everything. Within the last 6 months, I've had 2 separate instances, which this is another issue itself, that
you know, I have an issue with it. I've had 2 instances where I've been given a release date for my content by Pam for content that I've worked on. The one being, I believe, 5 months of investigating. I'm given a release date, and I have cut downs and drafts and subtitles and everything, and then James shuts it down at the last minute. So really, the editorial process is James says yes or no. And that's just.
So I just want to emphasize this. He had a story that he was working on for 5 months. 5 months. And it's all ready to go. And there's a release date. And guess what? James, because James doesn't like him now, he's on the shit list, and had some sort of whim, just shuts down everything. Can you imagine how it would feel if you worked on something? And I know what story he's talking about, and this was a really big fucking story. Can you imagine, like, you work on something for 5 months and everything's good to go and everything's all set, and then your boss, who has a beef with you over something stupid, just pulls the plug because he feels like it?
Something that, I don't know, I really don't know what James doesn't have full control over. I'm sorry, someone say something.
No, you're good, looking.
No, okay, never mind, my bad. But no, I'll wrap it up with this. I felt like, especially the Mohawk situation, which hurt me the most. You know, I've been thinking about this for a while, and like, to me, our ethics and core values are, I mean, I love this organization. I love what I do. I love everything about it. And do I feel good about looking for other jobs because I feel insecure about my job right now? No, I don't feel good about that. But I have a 6-year-old daughter that I have to provide for. So with stuff like this going on, I don't know if James is going to retaliate for what I said. I don't know if what's going to happen with the company, but I fear it. And that's what I've started doing because I have no other option. And at the end of the day, my number one priority is to, be able to provide for my daughter, whom, not to mention, I've spent countless weekends getting coverage for. And I'm a partial custodian. I only get her on weekends. I've sacrificed time and arranged, daycare and things like that, so that I can do this job, so that I can pursue investigation. And I've just given a lot to this company. So this is all just very disheartening. And to the Mohawk point, as I wrap this up, I just wanted to say that I felt like that was a classic example of breaking our ethical value number 10, which is being accountable. I feel like James did not hold himself accountable whatsoever for his audio failing, his personal audio failing. And I feel like he played the blame game, which isn't something that I haven't seen before out of James. And he looked for anyone to be impressed with.
I have one question for you, so it's really on a personal level. Are you a dance dad?
I'm sorry?
Are you a dance dad? Do you take your daughters to dance at rehearsals and so on?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. That's my wife. Okay, thank you. Wow. I know exactly. For those folks listening who don't understand what I just asked and got an answer to, you have no clue how difficult that is.
I understand it. I'm in your club. I have a question for you.
Good to see you, Naruto.
Go ahead, Chief.
I'm sorry, I just said yes. It's a lot, but it's so rewarding.
I know.
Stephen.
Oh, anyway.
As the undercover journalist, are there any rules about having backup audio?
Yeah. So the rule is you should always have 2 forms of audio on you at all times.
Did James have 2 forms of audio?
No.
Both failed? Yeah.
No. And I wanted to say something, but he was already in the process of telling me it was my fault.
Okay, I have nothing further.
Hey, thanks. It's great to run into you briefly the next day at lunch. I think it was so cool meeting with you, and appreciate your information and the sacrifices that you made for the job.
Thank you guys, I really appreciate it. I appreciate every one of you, and again, I'm even taking this call is disheartening, but I can't. I love this organization too much, to not do it. And the truth is paramount. That's what we're here for. And sometimes it's tough, but I would take this call a million times again for the right thing.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Stefan, can you hear me?
Yep, no, I can hear you.
Okay. And
that is it.
should be in and on mute.
Okay, done.
Here you on.
Hey, yes, I'm on.
Right. Please tell the assembled board members and observers name, what your role is, how long you've been with the organization, and then proceed to share with us whatever you want to share.
Yeah, my name is, I am a major gift officer, and I've been with the organization since January of 2020, so just over 2 years. And whenever I was asked to speak before the board today, I was immediately overwhelmed with fear and anxiety, but I think those feelings are exactly why I knew I needed to speak to you all today. The mission of Project Veritas is one that I fully believe in, and I'm willing to risk the repercussions of speaking openly if it will help change the future culture of our organization, because I care about it so much. And I want to start by saying that I really do respect everything that James has done. No one else is doing the work that Project Veritas does, and that's due to James being the visionary to build what we have now. But it's the mission of PD. That's the reason why I've stayed with the organization as long as I have. Since my employment in January 2020, I've just come to learn that obedience and innovation is the culture being created.
Can anyone hear this person?
And what is actively promoted at Project Veritas. Working here over the last few years has impacted me mentally and emotionally, spilling over into my personal life where my mood is impacted based on James' treatment of me or my colleagues. While here, I've witnessed a lot of turnover. Our average is 1.5 years.
Okay, that got a little bit better for me.
The fast food industry, and that's really unfortunate because I have never been surrounded with a group of people who are more dedicated, mission-driven, and overall just really incredible human beings. And not only have I seen the culture go down internally, as the only remaining major gift officer at this point for the organization, I can attest that it's now becoming more external, and this is happening at a rapid pace, which makes it difficult for me in fundraising and those left on my team to achieve our goal of that. And so, really, I want to kind of go through a few examples. And so in 2020, there was concern of a mole in the office leaking information to the public. And so a majority of the staff were required to travel to headquarters. So I had to fly there just for this reason, to be interrogated by 2 private investigators who were hired to identify the mole. At the conclusion of the interrogation, I was told by the 2 guys who questioned me that they knew I was legitimate, they didn't have any concerns based on my answers, as well as the fact several of my colleagues had expressed confidence.
Oh, did they?
But then at some point, James had brought me into his office and questioned me a second time with COO and CLO who were employed at the time. Mainly, he was just questioning, I think, my loyalty to the organization. And then after the interrogation took place, the staff were never provided with a conclusion around who the mole was, and that's even after staff asked a few different times during all staff calls or all hands meetings on the conclusion. And because of that whole experience, morale was so low,
colleagues were questioning their trust in one another, and it led to less collaboration, everyone being siloed, and it was an overall less effective work environment. In 2020, also, I suffered through the unfortunate experience of a miscarriage. So I had taken about, half of a week off to work to physically and mentally heal from that. But James was pretty adamant that he wanted me to return back to work, and went as far as telling my supervisor at the time that he didn't give a fuck about my situation and he made me retire. So as you can imagine, whenever in 2021 I learned that I was in never customer expecting a very healthy baby boy, I was incredibly afraid to tell James this news. I even took Jen, who's head of our HR, out for a coffee to tell her, and then immediately followed up with, the anxiety about how I'm supposed to tell James I'm expecting a baby, how it's going to take this, or is this going to negatively impact my relationship and my employment. I requested that she be in the room with me when I shared the news with him, and he definitely seemed to take it well, but it was just another example of the fear-based work environment that's been in the culture. In the summer of 2021, when I was 8.5 months pregnant, I was actually brought in to be questioned by the FBI because I was present at the January 6th rally. I was there with Project Veritas supporters, and they were introducing me as a prospect donor.
All right. I'm sorry. I can't hear this person. I just can't. I tried. I need to fast forward through this. I can't hear it. I don't mean to disrespect her. I just can't hear it.
Because the time is so valuable and so limited. And he regularly was saying that we have to do our job for us.
43.
Being unrealistic in terms of what the expectations are in terms of the money raised. We lost 3 different people in the development team. But $13 million was we raised in 2000.
Articulate presentation. I really.
Thank you.
Jared, do you want to answer this, James, or do you want me to?
Dan, how would you?
Well, what is the
Did he leave on his own?
I'm not able to officially confirm that.
Him and Jared were. Do you want to answer this, James, or do you want me to?
Dan, how would you address?
I would say we mutually agreed that the relationship was not working out.
Okay. That's all I got.
Thanks. Stefan is off the call.
Thanks.
Okay, you want me to let him?
Yeah, you could let.
Okay. Hi, I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear.
If you were to tell one assembled board and observers name, your role, and how many years you've been with the organization, and then just share with us what's on your mind.
Yeah, my name is, I'm a journalist here, and I've been a journalist here for 3.5 years. I just want to say that there are so many things that I love and admire about James. I've seen the very quiet, humble, vulnerable side to him, and I so appreciate his bravery. I have personally not been on the receiving end of verbal abuse from James. Today, I'm just going to bring up specific instances where people have reported to me negative behavior. So here are a few short instances. I received complaints from my FBI source, Diamondback, about James. Diamondback was upset about witnessing James's treatment of staff during his interview in DC. He said that James was snapping at employees and ordering them around in a curt manner. So Diamondback called me after and told me that James needs a, quote, people management class, and that he was a, quote, diva. I reported this to Jen just to let her know, and I'm not sure what was done after that. More recently, Diamondback was introduced to a high-dollar TV donor named Anonymous. During dinner, Jane reportedly offered Diamondback a job with PV, and Anonymous donor was
very supportive of that idea. Diamondback did not end up getting hired due to
True.
cultural differences, I believe, as well as a couple other reasons. But Diamondback had brought up that he thought James had a micromanaging nature about him, and that he wished James would allow Dan to do his job as executive director more autonomously. And James told Diamondback that if he wasn't a good cultural fit for TV, then it might just not work out. And Diamondback told anonymous donor about this, and the donor told Diamondback that he was turned off by James's over-promising and, quote, boastful demeanor during the dinner, and that he intends to pull out of supporting TV financially. The other instance is that a while ago, a colleague and I introduced a high net worth husband and wife to Project Veritas. We've been friends for a while, and they are currently a Project Veritas high dollar donor. The better part of a year ago, the husband told me that he was initially very turned off by a meeting that he had with James. He claimed that James asked him in a rather demanding way that he would like him to write a $75,000 check to TV on the spot, which made him very uncomfortable. But he did end up writing a check that day and continued the relationship with TV. I believe it was pretty soon after they attended a donor event for TV where James was present. And the wife told me that she asked James for a photo and he had turned her down, and that she was very embarrassed and felt like crying. And they have continued to support PV after this. I did happen to get a call from her today, just as the most recent update, and she only had great things to say about PV and James. So since this incident, it seems like they've gotten to know the positive James that I personally know and love. These incidences aren't particularly severe, in my opinion. I think they're byproducts of being in a very high pressure environment all the time. My intention is just to present what has been reported to me in a balanced way with respect to James and everyone here. I love working here, and I only want the best for the mission of every person involved.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
No, thanks. Nice balanced testimony.
Thank you.
Stefan, please let in ending.
Hello?
Hey, please tell the board and assembled observers your name, what you do at Project Veritas, and how many years you've been at the organization, and just speak freely.
Hi, everyone. I'm one of the associate producers here. I basically cut all the videos and write the scripts for the stories that we put out. And I've been here for 3 years. It's ongoing my 4th year now. So just to start things off, I want to say it's been really tough this past week because, in the end, I love James like family. I really do. And, him and I have had our ups and downs over like the past 2 years I've been here. And unfortunately right now, given the circumstances, him and I are getting along probably the best we ever had. But this isn't about me and James's relationship anymore. This is about preserving the Project Veritas
organization and making sure it will last beyond me and all of us who currently work there. So basically, the way I've seen the way management works here over the past 2 years is, we've compromised our success by elevating people who are agreeable. They're agreeable to, James's wants, which is important as he's running the company. But they're also mediocre. They don't exhibit the same passion or drive as the ones who've been here and have been working tirelessly around the clock forever, for years now. To grow and expand, to reach new horizons. I always say I want to cross the Rubicon, and I think, we've done it. That we're right there. But we're having the best. We just had the best release we ever had in Project Veritas history by 3x, and we're getting coverage like we've never seen. I just saw Mount Voice people do it, covering the story. That's a whole new potential audience. And right now we're dealing with stuff like this because a very ludicrous, radical decision to try to get rid of Tom and Barry for voicing grievances it's caused a huge rift in everything that's been going on because these are valued, very important people to the organization. Barry was talking to Angela and me about his vision for the future and why not expand and do all this thing. He doesn't need to be there. He's a rich guy. He's doing this because he believes in what we do, just like I do. I've said a million times, I just want to leave, but in the end, I don't because I love this place. I love the mission. I love the team. We're all family, and I firmly believe that. And it makes it impossible for me to want to go anywhere because I know nowhere else in the world am I going to have an experience the way I had here, and it has been a really positive one in the sense a very adventurous, very fulfilling work that we're doing. The impact we have, the camaraderie we have when things are good and everything's fun and exciting and we're doing all this crazy stuff together. And there's nothing like it when that's the case. And it's we're just a bunch of good friends changing the world. That's there's nothing in the world I'll ever get that's like that. But the problem is because historically we've had bad hires, Jeeves causing a disaster, and Vanessa, who didn't really care about what I did or my involvement, didn't really want to know. She just knew that I was loyal to Nancy, so she saw me as a threat, and she just wanted me out. And that's why after Nancy was oh, Vanessa didn't. Or James even also, James apologized at least, which made me feel better about it. I still felt kind of rubbed the wrong way that after I was writing the stories and producing them for over a year, I wasn't the first person they bring into the room after getting rid of my boss in a crazy way. And that led to other people leaving, like Spencer and Eric Toth. Oh, Eric Toth left before because of a different pretty egregious reason where somehow it was agreed upon that Eric Toth would be strapped up to a lie detector test. And about the Ashley Biden diary, I think it's insane to me. Eric Toth, there's no way he would do that. He was loyal to the organization.
They're talking about the time that James made Eric, who was their head of comms, take a lie detector test because James was paranoid.
So once he was challenged that hard, he couldn't take it, so he left. And then Nancy getting fired, in a very public fight, which shouldn't have happened in the first place. And it led to, that all happened because of the Oklahoma thing. It was its own can of worms that's just chaos. Because it's one thing, I understand that James repaid it. I understand that happened. But the fact of the matter is that it robs TV of crucial resources. Most of my department in production was gone. And so I was kind of left scrambling, working on 4 or 5 different stories, Daffodil Homeland, Injection, and what was it? And Gabriel Geist. And now, and then I'm stuck there and everything's kind of all over the place because these stories are complicated and weedy as they were. And Nancy gets sick and she's going to go to Oklahoma. And I know that hurt me, James, I know it hurt him. and I understand why, but at the same time, she was sick. She couldn't physically come. And I understand also the South Dakota incident was really bad. But she was we went out, first Ivory Hecker was allowed to go with us to Mount Rushmore and go to Freedom Fest and hang out with us, so throughout, after that whole crazy thing in that room was insane to me. I couldn't believe that we allowed this crazy person to stay around us. And then on top of that, Nancy and I got sick coincidentally, from Tampa to South Dakota, and then she was started to go on her birthday out to this wine drinking party, and there was no choice. She had to go to this donor prospect, or James would have gotten very upset with her. And Ivory Hector's there, and she's sick and very drunk, and it's her birthday, and this crazy person's there. It just all feels like it was, I'm not saying it was a deliberate setup or nothing like that, but I'm saying all the elements of the night. What could have been avoided is if she wasn't concerned about getting lambasted by James, if she just left, then we would still have her on as an incredible executive producer, because she was so important to the growth and the tremendous expansion we had. And even when I first started, our growth, us getting a million followers across every account that we have on social media, was after fall of 2020, when Eric was able to run the social media, and Nancy and I buckled down and got all production help and all the stuff that was able to keep up with the consistency. And so I take our success very personal, because I like to think I helped a lot with that. And so to get rid of someone who was so crucial in that piece, and it just feels it was just stuff just kept happening to her. And then and then also you don't know why Vanessa really was let go. And I just don't understand how when Nancy was thrown away, everyone we were so quick to say she was suing us. And then when I asked her, because she hired a lawyer for her separation agreement not to sue us, and I knew you guys couldn't communicate to her. So when I asked her, I was told I violated my NDA, in an interrogation with Dave's senior leadership. And that really hurt me, because when I was asked if I was talking to her about things internally, I said no, because I want to violate my NDA. And then I found out later that in a room full of people, it's because James called me, I was working from home the next day, so I was very upset. And James calls me and asks me on the phone point blank if I want to resign. And although I felt like I was the closest I ever was to doing it, I don't want to give up on this place. I don't want to let go. And so I just said, James, I'm here. I'm still in it. But it was just really, and the effort to try to get me to stop talking to her, but she was more than just a co-worker. She taught me a lot, and just serving as a mentor in a general sense of my career and life, not just Project Veritas. I wish I could ask her about how I can do things here, but I don't want to tell her any internal information, so I don't get that advice, unfortunately. And so, and then also Vanessa's agreed, her letting go and us not telling the truth off the bat in the way Nancy was treated, that really just showed me how even working your ass off here and trying to make the best company you can will if you go against what James wants or what senior leadership wanted, whatever back then not only were you terminated, but your reputation to all your colleagues, to your former colleagues, will get dragged through the mud. And then they'll never get corrected. I mean, Dan did correct it. I realize that. But it took so long to correct something that I knew wasn't true immediately. And I don't know, I told people myself because I knew the truth and I believe in the truth. And at this point, I just think all this mismatch and the misplaced theatrics, what people love about us is going out doing undercover investigative journalism. It makes us look really cool. It's the thing that makes us sexy, everyone loves Veritas because it's super cool and interesting, and no one does stuff like that. And while I respect that James, he wants to into the theater, I do like the theater stuff. I do. I'm into that stuff. But I don't think that it's on brand with what we do. While David has justified it, it rationalized how it's connected. In the end, it's like that's not getting us anywhere in like the investigative path forward. Like I work here because I believe in exposing corruption and like speaking truth to power.
This is your typical conservative faggot who, first of all, is incapable apparently of talking or of telling the difference between James Lindsay and James O'Keefe. Because Fat Boy, right now, we're actually doing a stream about James O'Keefe. I know this must be deeply confusing for you because there's a giant image there that says James O'Keefe, which means, I don't know, maybe you're not the best reader in the world, but then I do have a giant picture as well. So you weren't even able to read that. And you spent a whole 5 minutes waiting to subscribe because you think you owned me over James Lindsay? Does that make you feel better about having a tiny cock, bro? Like, not only are you fat, but you're unable to please a woman? I know. It must suck. It must suck. Like, listen. I have to acknowledge that it must suck to be fat and ugly and to have a penis the size of my pinky finger when erect, which means you can never please anyone and no one's ever going to love you or want to be with you. And so what you need to do is relegate yourself to the internet and come and disrupt other people's streams to make yourself feel like a big man. I know that must suck, bro, but you understand, right? That we can always suss out when people have small pee-pee energy here. It's not even that hard. So now we're going to go back to our recording and you can piss off with the other faggots and go cry into a corner. Goodbye.
And it's not to work on stage plays and things like that. And I know people who support us aren't into that stuff either. And because in the end they want to support our mission to expose corruption. That's my main task here. It's the thing I care about the most. I love it the most. This story, that just went out and invigorated my spirit, giving me hope for this place. And just lastly, Dave told me at the Christmas party, yes, he announced it publicly, but told me personally, and also at RC's wedding, that, the past 2 years have been crazy. And I haven't really gotten too specific with everything. I'm trying to give a more general version of things. But I was hoping, okay, that
True.
maybe this year won't be so great, and maybe we'll have it under control. We can go back to that flowing feeling that we had years prior before we were censored and everything. But then the way it was Barry and Tom and other things I heard that were these big major changes. I was just this is just going to be another crazy year, and it's I don't know how much more of that I can take. I don't want to leave. I want to make sure this company is perfect and in an upward trajectory. I want it to become the big success. I want to see it as potentially the biggest and most successful news organization of all time. And I wanted to do that. I'll do whatever I have to do that. But I think things have to change in order for us to achieve that.
Question. Obviously, there's been lots of triple volatility in personnel, which is certainly not stabilizing, but you obviously have some close relationships with people. Everyone does. Did you ever go into James' office and tell him that you didn't think that it was, the right move, even if he can unilaterally make those moves to get some closure on it? Were you communicated, or you just were never able?
Well, no, James and I, it's just obviously the biggest like lost in that, and for me was obviously Nancy. And James, like, you know, I felt nervous personally, but James called me in after, like, I really nailed Vanessa, after, like, I wasn't called in to the room with, James following, Nancy being asked to take vacation. So, like, I really, went in with her, and then, I didn't go back to the office, and James called me back to, like, apologize for that, which I really appreciated. But I just felt like the story had kind of changed. And James would give me a chance, like, we talked, like, him and I spoke, on a balcony in Miami for about 2 hours, like, about 2 weeks after everything went down. And, like, we were talking, but I still kind of felt like I had to, like, hold back, like, you know, my fear. But, like, I was still able to be pretty honest. And, but, like, but after that, it was like, cause like he understood how significant that was, like, you know, not just for the company, but like for me personally. So I think like you, like, I imagine like you just wanted to make sure I was all right. And I appreciate that. Make sure I wasn't, like, you know, I wasn't going anywhere. And I really appreciate that. Like, you know, like I said, I love James like family. Like, this is, like, you know, I really do. But like, you know, sometimes family, you know, stuff gets screwed up. And like him and I've had our ups and downs. But like this, like it's, you know, right now I'm not coming from an ill place enough.
Understood. Anyone have any questions for?
Good. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you. Stefan, if you would look in,
Okay, come in.
Guys, this is Steve London. I have off. But almost think I need to at this point.
Okay. Yes, thanks, Steve.
Former, Mike, former head
Got it. Sure. We're recording, so if you have time to look later, that'd be great.
I will, just somebody send me a link to the recording.
Stefan,
Yes, I.
hey, tell the assembled board observers name, what you do in the organization, and your perception of where things are.
Sure. I'm Jen, and title change from HR director recently to office administrative director. And where I see things right now, I'm concerned. We just lost three executives in the company last month, and two are looks like Tom and possibly Dan and Barry are being terminated, or I'm not really sure exactly what that is, but I'm concerned about that. I've been here for 8.5 years, and I've always supported the organization and what we do. The organization is everything to me. I understand that James, from what I understand, I don't know everything because I'm really being thrown into this. That there's a possibility that you're asking that he steps down as his role as CEO from the organization and let him
Don't be determined anything. We're just trying to understand the culture as it exists currently.
That question has not even been brought, so.
Okay. So culture, I think we have a very fast-paced culture with the organization. To really our job. We've got people who work here more recently in the past 2 years than prior to, have thick skin, be ready for, a very high work ethic. It's a very demanding job, reasonably so. We're doing work to make impact on the world at this point with their last release that we just did. So I think it's a tough place to work. It's not amusing. You have to have that skin. Some people are resilient and some people don't make it. I'd like to improve the retention, that's for sure, especially the part of the vetting process and hiring process. We have a lot of turnover. Well, no, I shouldn't say less because we just have three executives for this. So that's sort of the culture. You guys can ask me any questions that you want.
Do you know the numbers of the people that have turned over?
The numbers of the people, or the three executives recently.
Actually, what's the retention rate, I think, is what he's asking. What's the retention rate?
I don't have a ratio on it, or a percentage on it, but, I just did a report for a legal team, for one of the lawsuits that we're in, and since 2016, for the last 7 years, we've had 139, people, either employees or contractors, terminated from the company, or left.
Oh, shit.
Since 2016?
Hang on. Breaking news. Quickly switching gears, and we're going to go right back. Apparently, there was a leaked memo that Columbia was thinking about sicking the National Guard on the students. How crazy. This was recorded on February 6, 2023. This was the board meeting in which James O'Keefe alleges that he was just thrown under the bus by everyone at Project Veritas, and he just had no choice but to burn down the company.
Yeah, for the last 7 years. I just literally did that report, so I know that information is accurate.
That's probably, just FYI, Matt, that's probably on an average base over those 5 years or 6 years of probably 50 people, an average base. So you're looking at whatever, 300% turnover in 7 years.
Not hundreds, about 20, 40, or 2 a month at the straight line amortized.
Yeah.
You're widely considered, I think, in the office.
Oh God. More breaking news. Okay, now apparently the organizers of the protest at Columbia they've gotten wind of this National Guard thing, and they're so pissed off that they're putting calls out throughout all of the socialist organizations in New York that have been helping them to basically try to get everyone to Columbia right now to all take over the lawn, like not just Columbia students. They're calling like basically every fucking leftist come to Columbia. Right, like this is happening like right now.
Other people fighting you. Can you talk a little bit about their feelings on the culture, their feelings of, do they feel safe, confident they can be their best selves, this sort of thing?
I think everyone knows that here that our culture is certainly different from working at a government job or something like that. That's for sure. We're a mixed bag of people. No one comes from the same place. We're very different. We embrace that about each other. I think, we definitely have a roller coaster here. There's ups and downs all the time. Morale is up and down all the time. It's inconsistent. Do they feel safe here as far as physical harm? I don't think anyone feels that they're going to get hurt. Do they feel like they're going to lose their job?
Someone's going to get shot at Columbia. They're going to become a martyr. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Layoffs, so people were probably a little threatened by that.
Yep.
I don't know what else to really say about that. People come to me, but actually not frequently so much. They may not want to come to me in some sort because maybe I am responsible for enabling certain situations that they don't feel comfortable coming to me. That's just being honest.
Are you, as you, Magnolia, working to, find resumes and find hiring, you talk to people as they apply. What are from people who know about the organization, do you ever hear any, they come in with any perspectives or any, is there a reputation that precedes and what their view on is?
what do you mean by that? It's people that we're vetting.
Yeah, when people apply, you have conversations with them about, what is the sort of culture, does anyone have any notions as they come in about it?
I don't think so. We're pretty transparent about what it's like here because we found that we're more successful with our hires and being transparent with, it's a tough place to work. It's a lifestyle. It's not necessarily it's certainly not a 9 to 5.
Okay. Does anyone have, Jen?
I'm sorry, I missed what you said there, Matt.
No, if any,
Jen, have you seen qualitative or quantitative changes in the number of years that you've been with the organization? Over time, most recently versus in the past? Or?
Changes with just the culture and how,
Yeah.
I think our culture has improved because our vetting process has improved, and I think we're hiring more of the right people. I would say in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So we're trying to hire more leader type people for sure, not people that just have skill set or mission driven.
Good. Well, even James did tell me last week that he has the best team he's ever had. And that included executives who, in our conversation of almost a week ago, as I understood.
Yeah, I believe that as well. I think our team is pretty phenomenal, and they work really hard to achieve great things.
Anybody else have any questions? Dan, thank you for coming on.
All right.
Sure.
Guys, I hate to pause this, but there's 2 hours left in this recording, and I'm getting a little tired, and there are actually things I need to do tonight to set up for our spy stream tomorrow. So I think we're going to do a part 2, because I do want to listen to the rest of this. I just can't keep going on it tonight. I'm getting tired, Joe. But I appreciate you guys, those of you who made it, especially for the whole thing. I appreciate you guys taking the time out to listen. And we will maybe even resume it tomorrow, but I have to see what else is going on in the news to be able to assess that, because there might also be things with the protests that I want to cover and things like that. So what time is Spy Stream tomorrow? That is a good question. So Spy Stream, which we are doing tomorrow and on Thursday, is going to start at 11:30 a.m. If you want to take part in Spy Stream, you need to be a supporter on my Substack, on my locals, on my Patreon, on my Twitter subscriptions, or on my YouTube channel membership. Not all of them, obviously, although if you were, that'd be really nice, but you don't have to. But you have to be a supporter on at least one of those things. What's going to happen is prior to the stream going live tomorrow, which again, around about 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, you're going to receive an email, or there's going to be a post on whatever platform you're a member on, giving you a link to follow to watch the live stream. Okay? And so the stream is going to go from about, again, around 11:30ish to about 4 p.m. Eastern time. Same time on Thursday, and we are going to be watching a taxpayer-funded liberation training. This is a live training, so you don't know what's going to happen. Maybe something happens, maybe nothing happens, but I think this one looks very, very, very woke. And so everyone's invited to come and do that, but it is a supporter-only stream, so make sure you sign up. You can head over to my Substack, which is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. Remember, that's the place that was covering all this James O'Keefe stuff before anyone else. No big deal. No big deal. So you can support my work over there, and you get access to Spy Stream. But that's all we have for tonight, guys. Again, thank you for hanging out. I do appreciate it. I'm going to go set up Spy Stream for tomorrow and maybe even get some sleep. So we will continue this, though. I'm not done with this. We're going to continue the rest of it. We'll just have to figure out when. All right, guys, take care. We'll see you soon.